So, imagine this. A young woman is dragged, kicking and screaming, probably internally, right into the heart of the Joseon dynasty's palace. She's met with a wall of icy stares and outright contempt from all these high-ranking officials. The person she's about to face? None other than King Yi Hyun, a dude known for having the most refined palate in all of Joseon, but also infamous for being a straight-up tyrant. The court, in unison, starts bellowing for her execution. Then, the king, with this super dramatic flair, whips out this gleaming sword. He points the damn thing right at her. Everyone figures this girl is toast, like game over, right? But instead of taking a swing, King Yi Hyun says, "Stone cold. From this moment forward, you will be the royal head chef." The royal head chef? And a woman? That's unheard of. Turns out, the night before, this girl served the king this totally unique dish that blew his mind. Like, it completely messed with his taste buds in the best way possible. So the king lays down the law. Every single day, you will cook for me. But listen up, if you repeat a dish, even once, or if I don't like something you make, you're dead. All this girl ever wanted was to be a Michelin 3-star chef. And now she's basically been forced into becoming a tyrant's personal cook. Before she can even react, whoosh, the king swings his sword and cuts her ropes. He will find a way to kill me no matter what. I must survive and come back, she thought. The girl bows her head, saying with a mix of respect and snark, "While this contract seems a little unfair, I will do my utmost to serve your majesty." But here's the kicker. This isn't just any girl. She's Chef Ji Young, and she's from the year 2025. And the whole crazy situation started just a few days ago. Ji Young was the only woman left in the final round of Golden Ladle Showdown, the hottest cooking competition in all of France. If she wins, she's taking home 100,000 euros and the head chef position at this legendary Michelin 3-star restaurant. The final challenge? Prepare a royal feast. Talk about pressure. With just 4 minutes left on the clock, all the other contestants are scrambling, putting the finishing touches on their dishes. And Ji Young? She's having the worst luck. Her oven suddenly breaks down. The tech crew rushes over, but they can't fix it. Ji Young takes a deep breath, telling herself to stay calm. Then, in that moment, she has this insane idea. She runs to the ingredient area, grabs all the decorative straw, shoves it into a pot, and lights it on fire, turning it into a makeshift oven. The judges are freaking out because Ji Young is using unauthorized materials to start a fire. But Ji Young just throws back a classic French saying, "There's nothing worse than an unfinished dish." In her head, she's thinking it's better to go a little crazy than to give up completely. She keeps searing the meat over that straw fire. This is the most important step, creating that perfect golden brown crust with that amazing smoky aroma. It's all about the Maillard reaction, the magic that makes or breaks the flavor of the dish. Only 2 minutes left, the tension is thick. The second contestant has finished, and their dish looks like it belongs on the cover of a magazine. The third contestant has also wrapped up. But Ji Young? She's still meticulously arranging every little detail. The clock is ticking down, and she finishes at the very last second. Now it's time for the judges to scrutinize each dish. Contestant number 1 presents a dish called the King's Delight. It's creative, but it's not super memorable. Contestant number 2 went with a stuffed turkey roulade. Each bite is supposed to reveal a new flavor. Sounds appealing, but apparently, it doesn't quite mesh with the beef tenderloin he added. Contestant number 3 goes all out and uses cloves, a spice that was once worth more than gold. But unfortunately, the overall combination just doesn't work. Total failure. Then it's Ji Young's turn. She steps forward, brimming with confidence. "My dish is straw-smoked venison, with raspberry and red ginseng sauce, served with soy cream sauce and mishigaru Korean grain powder cake, plus a touch of caviar to really make the flavors pop. The meat is reverse-seared and smoked over straw, giving it a beautiful reddish-brown color and an amazing smoky aroma." One of the judges takes a bite and nods approvingly. Sweet, bitter, rich. Everything is perfectly balanced. And the gamey taste of the venison is completely gone. This is absolutely top tier. Ji Young seizes the opportunity and explains that during the Joseon dynasty, King Yi Hyun was famous for being both a brutal tyrant and a gourmet. Steak night was his favorite, and the straw smoking technique I use today also existed at that time. The story is unique and adds depth, giving the dish even more soul. Then the deciding moment arrives when the MC shouts, "The winner is Ji Young." She bursts into tears of joy. For the first time ever, a young chef has brought Korean cuisine to the international stage, surpassing hundreds of competitors and winning the French Golden Ladle. In 2025, the dream of becoming a Michelin chef has finally come true. That night, Ji Young clutches her trophy and heads home, totally walking on air. Paris is practically sparkling, like the whole city is celebrating with her. The next morning, she calls her dad, bragging about becoming the head chef at a 3-star Michelin restaurant, and she decides to treat herself to a trip home that same day. Her dad tells her there's a total solar eclipse happening, and tells her to make sure she sees it on the plane. He also asks her to bring back this super rare Joseon era book. On the flight, Ji-young is killing time by playing around with food plating ideas when the pilot announces that the plane is flying right through the path of the total solar eclipse. Seeing the eclipse from mid-air is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Some passengers sitting nearby get way too excited, taking photos and spilling a cup of coffee all over her. Ji-young doesn't even have time to worry about it, because she remembers the ancient book. The coffee has stained the pages. She panics and rushes to the restroom, desperately trying to wipe it off, hoping the stain won't spread. The book has this super dreamy name, Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds. Inside, besides the ancient text, there's a clear gemstone, some weird recipes, a ripped-out page, and finally a handwritten letter addressed to a loved one. If you ever read these words, please come back to me. It's not clear whether it is a historical book or a Joseon-era love story. Suddenly, the plane starts shaking violently, the lights flicker, and the restroom door gets jammed shut. Everything outside seems normal, but no matter how much Ji-young knocks and yells, no one hears her. A massive jolt throws her to the ground. The book slips out of her hand, and the words inside it start glowing, swirling around her like a tornado and sucking her in. In an instant, Ji-young finds herself flying through the city, past deep forests, until she falls straight into a waiting net trap, like she's been caught in a hunter's snare. Ji-young loses consciousness, unaware that not far away, King Yi-hyun and his soldiers are having a huge deer hunt in the forest. As he raises his bow, the king's eyes suddenly darken, and old memories flood back. When he was just a boy, he witnessed his own mother being murdered by his father. Yi-hyun was just a trembling child, about to scream, when the royal servant quickly covered his mouth. "Crown Prince, please restrain yourself." The suppressed pain of so many years, combined with his anger, all goes into his arrow. With one shot, the deer in front of him collapses. The guards cheer and wave flags, signaling a bullseye. The king strides forward, coldly drawing his knife and slitting the unfortunate animal's throat. Blood splatters, staining his face red, but Yi-hyun's eyes are empty and emotionless. The royal servant suggests they return to the palace because it's almost dark, but the king shakes his head. Turns out today isn't just any day. It's the 10th anniversary of Yi-hyun's reign. Back at the palace, Queen Dowager In-ju is absolutely furious, yelling at her servants because the king has abandoned the ceremony. This day also coincides with the solar eclipse, a sign of bad luck, which people believe means the heavens are angry. The concubines are gossiping, wondering why the king skipped the celebration. Only In-ju knows the truth. Today is the anniversary of the king's mother's death. Outside the palace, civil and military officials are both carrying out the ceremony and arguing about the king's delay. One high-ranking official even grumbles that the country is as chaotic as the torn dress of a cheap woman. While the court is in chaos, the king is chilling in the forest, drinking and enthusiastically offering a special reward to whoever hunts the most deer. The soldiers are hyped up, while the royal guards are pale as ghosts, because the common folk believe that if the king skips the sacrifice, a ghost woman will appear. Yi-hyun doesn't believe in that superstitious nonsense. Meanwhile, Ji-young has woken up. She frantically cries for help, but she's in the middle of nowhere, and her phone has no signal. One minute she was on a plane, and now she's the star of a survival movie. Just then, a fox runs past, heading straight toward the king, and disappears into the forest. Yi-hyun immediately spurs his horse and chases after it. Ji-young is losing hope when an arrow whizzes past her face. Before she can catch her breath, a second arrow hits the fox. A third arrow cuts the rope, and she falls to the ground. She screams and runs for her life, hiding behind a tree. In the distance, a figure on horseback is approaching. Hearing Korean, she's overjoyed, thinking she's found someone from home. But before she can even speak, Yi-hyun looks her up and down, declares her a suspicious creature, and aims his bow right at her. Ji-young screams and runs for her life, with Yi-hyun chasing her on horseback. They reach a cliff, and in desperation, she pulls out her stun gun to scare him. Yi-hyun notices that she has strange hair and clothes, and is holding a metal weapon that doesn't look like any sword or knife he has seen. Everything fits the rumors about the ghost woman. Ghost? I'm a Michelin 3-star chef. What devilish language are you speaking? This conversation is like two people from completely different universes. Ji-young thinks she's met an actor in a historical drama, while the king is convinced that he's facing a demon. Before they can explain anything, an arrow slams right into her handbag, sending it tumbling down the cliff. Ji Young angrily boasts that she has a black belt in Taekwondo, waving her arms and legs to show off her skills. The tyrant laughs, planning to shoot again, only to realize he's out of arrows. Ji Young takes the opportunity to threaten to call the police, and even name drops a distant lawyer relative to intimidate him. Yi Hyun doesn't bother arguing, dismounts his horse, and draws his sword, pointing it straight at her. I'm not sure which department he belongs to, but he's definitely going to lose his head soon. The electricity from the stun gun travels up the blade of the sword, but stops at the hilt. The king is unaffected and knocks the weapon away. Just as the sword is about to come down on Ji Young's head, an arrow suddenly flies out of nowhere and pierces Yi Hyun in the chest. Traitors! Yi Hyun manages to utter, before collapsing in pain on top of Ji Young, pulling her down into the river with him. At that moment, the soldiers finally arrive, only to find the fallen bow and arrow, and the emperor gone. Royal guards, don't go down there. Search the forest. After who knows how long, Ji Young coughs up some water and wakes up. Beside her is the crazy guy lying unconscious. They both fell into the water earlier and somehow ended up here. Then she realizes that he's been shot with a real arrow. Blood is pouring from his chest, and there's no one around to call for help. She breaks off the arrow shaft, uses her scarf to bandage the wound, and even puts cream on it to stop the bleeding. Even if he's crazy, she can't just let him die. She tries to call for help, but remembers that her phone fell out of her bag. She starts searching his pockets for a phone. Just then, Yi Hyun wakes up, thinking the demon is looking for a knife on him. Furthermore, he suspects that she's intentionally talking nonsense to confuse him and mislead his accomplice. Who shot him? No matter how Ji Young explains, the tyrant is determined to kill her. She snaps, kicks him in the leg, and quickly grabs his knife. Seeing that she's about to leave, Yi Hyun grabs her. She swings the knife out of reflex, stunning him. I'm a knife expert. Ji Young then demonstrates her professional knife skills, expertly slicing the air. However, while she is getting too excited, Yi Hyun suddenly moves in and pins her to the ground. Demon woman, reveal your name. I'm Ji Young. I've never heard of that family in this area. Ji Young, running out of ideas, blurts out, I'm a cook. Just then, the knife goes flying. Ji Young quickly throws sand in his face, but Yi Hyun still doesn't give up, struggling back. In the end, the tyrant is no match for Ji Young. First, she kicks him in the butt. Then he gets unlucky and takes a headbutt straight to the face, knocking him out cold. Ji Young seizes the opportunity and ties him to a wooden stake. She thinks about leaving him there, but in the end, she can't bring herself to abandon him. When he wakes up, Yi Hyun is furious to find himself tied up. But now Ji Young is the one in charge. If you don't want to die, follow me. Left with no choice, the tyrant has to agree, but still haughtily orders her to lead the way. So Ji Young leads him around like a dog on a leash. Meanwhile, Queen Mok Ju has received word that the emperor went hunting, but didn't return to the palace for lunch. She suspects something bad has happened. Could the Grand Army have made its move? 7 years ago, the Grand Army visited Mok Ju in a prison cell. She was about to be executed for losing someone. As it turns out, she was sold by her mother to a nobleman. She was whipped during the day and forced to obey that monster at night, so she killed him to escape that hellish life. Mok Ju doesn't regret it at all, and she would do it again. The Grand Army promised to get her out of there, on the condition that she would be loyal to him. Back in the present, Mok Ju orders a high-ranking official to send an urgent message to the Grand Army. Upon receiving the news, the Grand Army immediately gathers its faction, all people who want to overthrow Yi Hyun. They had previously agreed to remain inactive and wait for the right time. But today, someone has made a move first. It could be an outsider, but it could also be one of them. But now is not the right time, the Grand Army warns. Anyone who acts on their own will pay the price. It seems the Grand Army suspects someone in their ranks. Ji Young and the tyrant are walking themselves ragged, still not out of the forest. Yi Hyun keeps declaring that he's the king of this land, wanting to go to a tavern for some cinnamon and ginger tea. Of course, Ji Young still doesn't believe him, sarcastically suggesting that he's injured in the head, not the chest. Yi Hyun tells her to look at his sleeve. There's a dragon embroidered on it. Ji Young laughs and says that the costume rental is from the Royal Wardrobe of Costume Provision. What? The palace rents out royal robes? After arguing for a while, with neither side believing the other, the tyrant plays his final card. You're not my type, but when I return to the palace, I will bestow my grace upon you. That earns him a slap across the face from Ji Young. You're annoying and delusional. After walking for a while longer, they see a house in the distance. They go inside to check it out, but no one's home. It turns out this land is still part of the king's hunting grounds, and the commoners have been driven away. Ji Young thinks for a moment, and remembers that the one who created this hunting ground was the tyrant Yi Hian. But Yi Hian doesn't recognize that name at all. No one in the royal family has that name. You haven't heard of the first tyrant? He even recruited royal eunuchs to bring girls back to serve him. Yi Hian doesn't know who Yi Hian is, but he defends him. Beheading disloyal subjects is essential for governing a kingdom. The people in the hunting area have been resettled, and the royal eunuchs serve a noble purpose: to produce offspring and protect the royal line in the kingdom. It is the supreme duty of the great king. How can you condemn a king who favors women for his noble purpose? Noble my foot, you're just a womanizer. I hate guys like you. Just then, Ji Young sees some old clothes drying on a line. She changes out of her wet clothes and puts on the old hanbok. Suddenly, she hears a noise in the next room. She goes to check it out, and a girl wielding a broom comes out, trying to chase her away, calling her a thief. It turns out the clothes on the line are hers. She calls this a forbidden area in the hunting forest, the great king's hunting ground. All the old-fashioned words make Ji Young even more confused. You're wearing a hanbok too. This must be a movie set, right? But the other girl doesn't understand what she's saying. That's when Ji Young starts to suspect that she might actually be in the Joseon era. She asks a few more questions to confirm what year it is, and if she knows what a supermarket or convenience store is. Ji Young collapses upon hearing the answer, but she still doesn't dare believe it's real. It must be a dream. Just then, she hears her stomach growl. Can you even get hungry in a dream? Anyway, Ji Young decides to go find her bag first, get her phone back, and figure things out later. Luckily, the landlady is kind enough to invite Ji Young for a meal. She volunteers to cook. The two girls go outside and see Yihan has fallen asleep from exhaustion. Fortunately, the ingredients here are all natural and pure: schizandra berries, dried ferns, and radish water kimchi. The landlady, Gil Jiam, brags that she has a nose like a dog, often finding herbs and fruit in the forest by scent. They have rice, barley, and wild vegetables. Ji Young remembers that she has gochujang Korean chili paste and brown butter with her. She immediately starts preparing a meal. After putting the vegetables and mushrooms on the rice, she adds some gochujang and a poached egg. Then she melts the brown butter to sprinkle on the rice instead of sesame oil, creating a unique bibimbap. The finished bibimbap is as beautiful as a painting, almost too pretty to eat. While Gil Jiam goes to get some scorched rice, Ji Young brings the bibimbap to Yi Hian. He acts all high and mighty, refusing to eat it unless she tastes it first, meaning tries it to make sure it's safe. At that moment, Gil Jiam brings out the bowls. She's a little hesitant, guessing that Yi Hian is a nobleman. After mixing the rice, Ji Young takes a spoonful and says it's delicious. But when she tries to feed Yi Hian, he refuses, opening his mouth wide to eat. So she takes a smaller spoonful. He eats it, and his eyes light up before he starts coughing violently, accusing her of trying to kill him. When Gil Jiam tries it, she also finds it too spicy. Ji Young gets angry and decides to eat it all herself. But then Gil Jiam says she wants to eat more. At first, it burns her throat, but after the spice fades, she can taste how delicious it is. This is the best food I've ever eaten. Watching the two of them devour it, the tyrant suddenly starts drooling. Ji Young feels bad for him and feeds him a spoonful. This time, he finds it unbelievably delicious. Seeing Ji Young feeding him, Yi Hian is reminded of his mother taking care of him when he was little. Tears start streaming down his face. Ji Young thinks he's crying because it's too spicy. She notices that the blanket smells bad, so she takes it outside to air out and drapes it over. Yi Hian considering it revenge. She can't wait any longer and asks Gil Jiam to take her to find her bag that night. On the way, they come across a stream. Gil Jiam tells her to wash her hair to get rid of the dirt and grime. Meanwhile, the soldiers have found Yi Hian at Gil Jiam's house, but he decides not to return to the palace right away. Instead, he orders them to find the traitor who humiliated him. Not only that, he callously orders them to burn Gil Jiam's thatched roof house to the ground. Ji Young talks to Gil Jiam and learns that she lives here alone to escape being a Taihong, a candidate to be a royal concubine, selected to serve the king. At that moment, Ji Young really believes that she has traveled back in time. However, when she mentions the tyrant Yi Hian, Gil Jiam says she's never heard of that name. And clearly from history books, the Taihong draft was his initiative. Just then she sees a group of people with torches walking by. Ji Young excitedly waves her hand, not knowing that she's about to face the tyrant's revenge. Eptwo. Gil Jiam quickly covers Ji Young's mouth, pulling her back. That's the royal procession. We'll be dragged away if we get caught. But before they can run, they look up to see a whole squad of soldiers standing right in front of them. They're both hauled straight to jail. Ji Young is completely shocked, yelling and screaming as soon as she's locked up. But it's no use. The louder she yells, the more annoyed the other women locked up with her get. This jail looks like a model of a traditional folk village. Everyone is wearing a hanbok. The strange scene makes Ji Young even more doubtful. Did my life really crash into the Joseon era? Gil Jiam comforts her. There's a way to solve everything. But Ji Young can't calm down. She rushes to the door, banging and yelling until her voice is hoarse. As a result, they both get stuff shoved into their mouths, and their hands and feet tied tightly. Just yesterday, you were standing on stage winning the Golden Ladle Award. Excited to go home and show your dad. Now you're locked up in prison. Dad, you just got a chance to become head chef. How did it come to this? A memory flashes through her head like a fast forward. First, the solar eclipse, then the spilled coffee, the wet book, the electrical short, and then being caught by the crazy guy who claimed to be king. If this is really the Joseon dynasty, is what he said also true? Is he really the king? Could he be the tyrant Yi Hyun? Hundreds of questions swirl in her head, but she says to herself, I have to escape first. Before she can even think of a way, they're all dragged outside, lined up, and made to state their names and ages. Then they're divided into two groups. When it's her turn, Ji Young honestly says she's 27 years old. Because she's too old, she's assigned to the group on the left. Ji Young excitedly urges Gil Jiam, lie about your age too. So Gil Jiam claims to be 30 years old. The officer sneers, you look like you're 17 pretending to be 30. Gil Jiam then lowers her age to 28, and gets to go to the group with Ji Young. That's lucky, but it also stings a little. The group of women on the right is led away to change clothes, while Ji Young's group is thrown into the kitchen to prepare a feast for the guests. Meanwhile, King Yi Hyun is still having his men search everywhere for the ghost woman. He finds Ji Young's hair tied by the stream and gloats, guessing that she's walked right into his trap. In the kitchen, people are rushing in and out like a bustling marketplace. Ji Young finds everything strange, flipping over and touching all the soy sauce jars, vinegar bottles, and even marveling at the curved knife. The women are muttering, this girl is too spacey. What does spacey mean? Gil Jiam has to bring her back to reality, but Ji Young keeps asking curiously, what's everyone cooking? Some say seaweed soup, others say radish soup. It turns out all the assistant cooks have run away. No one knows who they're supposed to be cooking for, and almost all the ingredients have been taken away. Just then, they hear that a high-ranking official from the capital is arriving soon. If they don't have a 9-course feast ready, they're doomed. Poor people here are used to cooking soy sauce soup. How can they make a fancy feast? Everyone complains. If we're not chosen as royal concubines, we should be released. We haven't committed any crimes. Why are you making us work in the kitchen? Gil Jiam turns pale and signals her to stop arguing. You'll be flogged. But Ji Young continues to bargain. So if we cook well, we'll be released? The official says, if you satisfy the guests, then maybe. Hearing that, Ji Young says frankly, cooking isn't like assembling something. You have to put your heart into it to make it delicious. How can we cook if we don't know what the guests like? Everyone turns pale, thinking she's about to be beaten to a pulp, but he nods in agreement. So Ji Young accepts the challenge, but with a condition. If we satisfy the guests, you have to release everyone. Turns out the guests today are the Im family, a pair of powerful and corrupt officials who specialize in exploiting the common people through the Taihong selection. The perfect customers to mess with. Ji Young decides to go big. I'm going to teach them a lesson. Food isn't a joke. She immediately calls everyone together. The women thank her profusely. We're so lucky you spoke up for us. Otherwise, we'd all be dead. We don't have much time. We have to figure out how to survive as quickly as possible. Will you all follow my directions? Everyone nods eagerly. While waiting for her return, all the ingredients have been gathered. Ji Young takes a quick look and immediately knows. The guests today are powerful aristocrats with enormous influence. If we serve them ordinary dishes, we're doomed. Suddenly, Gil Jiam, with her nose like a bloodhound, pulls out a piece of fresh meat that was hidden in a pot. So Ji Young decides to make a fancy dish. French-style steak? Everyone doesn't understand what she's talking about, but no one dares to argue, just blindly following her instructions. In the corner, Eon UK crosses his arms, observing and nodding. It seems like this girl isn't bluffing. Look at how serious she is about the food. But either way, they'll have to pay for any mistakes. He turns to ask about the situation with Mihan. It turns out his daughter, Mihan, has just run away from the village, without even saying goodbye. Eon UK just sighs, considering her dead. In the kitchen at that moment, the aroma is spreading everywhere, with all the fresh ingredients from the countryside, unadulterated. Ji Young is constantly giving directions. The anchovies must be roasted until the fishy smell is gone. Stir-fry the shrimp paste until it's smooth. Everyone is running around frantically. and the atmosphere is tense but also lively. The hardest part is the cut of meat, which has too much silver skin and no fat. It's as tough as rope. Even the knives can't cut through it. Could this be ox meat? Ji Young suddenly remembers a secret from her dad's old book. To deal with meat that is too tough to swallow, you can use one method, which is to cook it at 55 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes. In France, it's called sous vide, a slow cooking technique to make the meat tender and melt in your mouth. So she decides to take a risk. Meanwhile, outside the palace, Mokju is as anxious as if she's sitting on a pile of fire. Because there's no news about the king, she's also keeping tabs on the Im family. I'm curious to see how Hong's smug face will change when he sees his granddaughter being chosen as a Taihong. At that moment, Eon UK is welcoming the Im family right at the gate, trying to look cheerful but with a heavy heart. Back in the kitchen, Ji Young is as relaxed as if there's no rush at all. She cuts the meat into neat squares, wrapping them carefully in seaweed. So, wrapping it in seaweed is what makes the meat tender. Then she asks Gil Jiam to add a little cold water to the bubbling pot. After that, she puts her hand down to check the temperature. The others look horrified because the water is still hot, but Ji Young remains calm. The ideal temperature to make the meat tender is around 49 to 55 degrees Celsius. In a warm environment like that, enzymes will be released that will make the meat tender. It's called sous vide. The problem is, boiling water is 100 degrees, and cold water is 20 degrees. You have to mix them carefully to get it right around 55 degrees. Without a thermometer, I can only use my hand to feel it. Even though her hand is red, she smiles. I've done this 100 times. Inside the house, the Im family is reviewing Taihong candidates. The scene is not unlike a beauty pageant casting. But the judge, Song Jae, is extremely picky. He scrutinizes each face, constantly criticizing. This one is too timid. That one looks like she's angry at the whole world. Big mole, big eyes, big mouth, and some are too tall. He scolds one. Were you in such a hurry that you forgot to bring your neck? Clearly, no one catches his eye. Song Jae then sarcastically says, everyone is talking about the most beautiful woman in this area. I was hoping you would loyally present her to us. Where is she? Eon UK pretends to be clueless. I don't know who you're talking about. Song Jae bluntly says it's Eon Yuk's granddaughter. Hearing that, Eon Yuk's face turns cold. My daughter Mi Han is just a child. Back in the kitchen, Ji Young finally subdues the stubborn piece of meat. As soon as she peels off the outer wrapping, the aroma fills the entire kitchen, making everything feel lively. The meat is pink and glistening with fat, making the women around her drool. It tastes great, but it's not done yet. It still needs to be seared to be perfect. Ji Young asks someone to get some straw quickly. Meanwhile, Eon UK invites the Im family to sit down for dinner. Before they can even settle in, they're already being criticized by the guests. It turns out that Hong had previously sent a letter to the king requesting the abolition of concubines, causing turmoil in the entire harem and court. His Highness was not happy about this. Just as dinner is being served, the meat is neatly arranged on the table, looking both appetizing and perfect. Yet the Im father and son take one look and frown, refusing to touch it with their chopsticks. Is this it? Is there a famine in this area that you can only serve a few slices of meat, and it looks no different from a barbarian's meal? Eon UK quickly defends himself, blaming everything on the newly appointed cooks. Please forgive us. I will punish them myself. Guards, drag all the cooks out here. Down in the kitchen, Ji Young is still busy worrying about her escape plan when she's dragged outside. When entertaining noble guests, the ingredients must be carefully selected from nature. How dare you serve only a few measly slices of meat on the table? This crime deserves severe punishment. Ji Young just wants to bury her face in her hands. I'm sorry, but have you tried it yet? This dish doesn't taste good cold, so I must convince them to eat it first. But the Ims order Eon Yuk's granddaughter to be brought in. It turns out that young lady Mi Han was caught while running away. The Ims give her a malicious smile. If what she says is true, we will accept this feast and leave in silence. If not, you must send your granddaughter with us. This is the Taihong selection order. Now Ji Young knows that this man is Song Jae, the most treacherous official in the court, the one who holds the power to assess the Taihong candidates. The Ims turn to Ji Young, challenging her. If this meal doesn't embody the essence of nature, you will die, understand? Ji Young is very confident in her sous vide technique, so she immediately nods her head. As soon as the Im father and son take a bite, their eyes light up. The meat is so tender that it almost melts in their mouths, and the rich gravy clings to their taste buds. Both are stunned. How can something be so delicious? It turns out the secret lies in Ji Young's skill. She has skillfully combined guanylic acid in shiitake mushrooms, inosinic acid in anchovies, and glutamic acid in shrimp paste. When these three factors resonate, they double the natural sweetness of the meat, creating a peak taste explosion. Modern people call it MSG, but here it appears from the subtle combination of primitive ingredients. The father and son eat non-stop, but when they get to the last piece, they both put down their chopsticks, claiming that the dish is no different from ordinary boiled beef and doesn't have a trace of the essence of nature as advertised. Indeed, the tongue has no bones. Ji Young is very upset, but still calmly explains. It may seem like it's just simple meat, but in reality, every ingredient has been collected from all over the place. Salt mixed with shrimp paste from Mapo Port, anchovies from the West Sea, and shiitake mushrooms picked from Mount Nugal. A dish that brings together the rivers, mountains, and skies. If that doesn't qualify as nature, then what does? But the Ims remain unmoved, saying they don't feel anything. But two K-Bulls aren't the only ones who tasted it. Jiang Dal roars. You're lying. I've never eaten anything so delicious in my life. You're lying to get an excuse to take my granddaughter away. He draws his sword, pointing it at the Im father and son. Traitors like you must die by my hands. Eon UK rushes to stop him. Please calm down, father. But now that he's yielded to the two K-Bulls, he has to go all the way. He turns and orders Ji Young and all the cooks to be beheaded. Ji Young is shocked and gasps. Am I really going to die here so anticlimactically? She cries and begs, but is still dragged away by the soldiers. Just when she thinks her life is about to end, a loud voice rings out. His Majesty has arrived. Everyone kneels down. In that oppressive atmosphere, the tyrant Yi Hyun speaks. If what you say is true, I will taste it myself. Ji Young doesn't dare to turn around, but the voice sounds terrifyingly familiar. Could it be that idiot whom I mercilessly beat up? Her limbs suddenly go limp. That's right, it's no one else. She even dared to curse him to his face just the other day. Now she wonders who's crazy. Ji Young despairs, silently apologizing to her dad for leaving him alone. Yi Hyun is secretly gleeful, calculating how he should torture Ji Young. She'll wish he had been flogged to death instead. Instead of punishing them immediately, the king orders the food to be brought out for him to taste. On the table, the food is served in a surprisingly simple fashion. The king gestures for Ji Young to come forward and taste it first. In that moment, a glimmer of hope flares up in her heart. If anyone can tell, it's Yi Hyun, the most famously discerning king of the Joseon dynasty. With a sense of taste so precise, he can detect a single grain of salt. Surely he won't wrongfully punish innocent people. As soon as Yi Hyun tastes a bite, he's stunned. How can the meat be so tender? The gravy spills out more and more with each chew. The pure sweetness spreads out and then dissolves, leaving a lingering aftertaste that is incredibly addictive. The accompanying seasoning doesn't overwhelm, but actually elevates the flavor of the meat to a whole new level. Ji Young nods to herself. The king's sense of taste is truly amazing, just like a true gourmet. She explains that it is a special additive that helps the dish have a deeper flavor without being salty. The king nods, praising and marveling. The 5 flavors from the salt and roasted onions that come with it are truly the perfect highlight, blending with the meat so perfectly that it is flawless. This dish deserves to be called a masterpiece. Ji Young's heart blooms. She's sure she's saved. This meal is truly nostalgic. It's been a long time since she's seen the king nod with such satisfaction. The king turns to the Ims and asks, "Why have you been constantly criticizing the food?" Song Jae immediately shows off his slippery skills. This dish is only worthy of a monarch. How can our mortal tongues taste it? Such a treacherous official. Ji Young wants to strangle him. The king turns to Ji Young, curiously asking, "You claim to be a chef, right? Judging by your skills, you're not lying. But the culinary profession has always belonged to men. How can a woman like you be so good at it?" Ji Young replies, "Because my dad likes to cook. I've been used to the kitchen since I was little, so I see it as my mission. Do you regret it? Since it's the calling of my life, there will naturally be both suffering and happiness. Just like your majesty. You have privileges, but you also have to bear heavy challenges. Being recognized for my skills by someone with a discerning palate like you is the greatest reward for me." The king nods and then asks her age. When he learns that she is 27 years old and not married, he feels sorry for her, thinking that she is past her prime. "So, where did you come from?" She hesitates for a moment and then says frankly, "From the future, about 500 years from now." The king nods as if he understands, making her think she has a chance. But then he drops a bombshell. "Today I will spare your life. It's a pity that your mind isn't normal, but your talent has saved you." So he really thinks I'm crazy? Well, if I think about it again, it's not wrong. I don't even believe myself, so why should he? Whether he believes me or not, I just want to be released. But life isn't always a dream. Yi Hyun orders Ji Young to be imprisoned and escorted to the palace tomorrow. Not only her, but Yongdao's granddaughter also shares the same fate. A pang suddenly shoots through Ji Young's heart. This is the spark that ignited the Jiapxia literati purge in history. Back then, the tyrant Yi Hian executed a series of officials related to his birthmother's death, causing countless scholars to lose their lives. She sighs and thinks to herself, "What goes around comes around. He's really a terrible person." Jia Yongdao tries to dissuade him. "Please punish all the corrupt officials and those women who use their power. Only then will the country be stable." But the more Yi Hian hears, the more furious he gets. "Now that your granddaughter is in danger, you remember matters of state? Are you feeling helpless because you can't save your loved ones? That pain is the punishment for those who pushed my mother to her end." Then, before anyone can react, Yi Hian coldly orders him to be exiled to the border. In the prison cell, Gil Jiam keeps wondering to Ji Young. Clearly, the food was praised as the best in the world. So why are others being released while we're sitting in this prison corner? Ji Young is both annoyed and curious, just wanting to open that idiot's head to see what the heck he's thinking inside. Hearing that she has to enter the palace tomorrow, Ji Young is extremely worried. "I can't let things go any further. I have to find a way back before it's too late. But how can I even get back?" Ji Young tells the truth, that she came from the future, thinking that Gil Jiam wouldn't believe her. But to her surprise, the girl nods her head. "I believe you. From the first time I met you, I saw something different about you. The strange scent, the strange dishes. None of that has ever existed here before." Ji Young feels like a burden has been lifted. She immediately convinces Gil Jiam to help her find the ancient book. Only it can only open the path back home. King Yi Hian, at this time, is joking around and sparring with Song Jae. It turns out the two of them were childhood friends, which is why they're so close. After taking a break, Yi Hian says, "Except for the chef, Ji Young, and the girl who was with her, release all the other girls that Song Jae caught for the Taihong today." Yi Hian still remembers Ji Young's blunt scolding. Maintaining the bloodline is just an excuse. He's just a womanizer. In reality, the Taihong selection is just the perfect cover for Yi Hian to avenge the unjust death of his mother. Thanks to that girl Gil Jiam, Yi Hian had a legitimate reason to exile Yongdao to the border. That's enough. Suddenly, Eon UK appears in the prison. He doesn't come to interrogate them, but to unlock the cells and release Ji Young and Gil Jiam. "There's no need to be afraid. I'm here to fulfill my promise. You made a good feast, so I'm going to let you go." He even shoves some food and a lamp into their hands for the road. The two girls thank him profusely. Before leaving, Ji Young comforts him. One day that tyrant will be punished. Song Jae quickly discovers the escape and reports it to Yi Hian. The two chefs are now officially fugitives in the deep forest. The two walk and talk. Gil Jiam now has no one left. Her father was a military officer, falsely accused and taken away to who knows where, and her mother lost her life in a bandit attack. Hearing that, Ji Young can only comfort and encourage her, inviting her to find a way back to the future with her. Knowing that Gil Jiam wants to become the #1 chef in the royal palace, she promises to teach her how to cook so that she can realize her dream. Soon they find the cliff, but it's pitch black and they can't find the bag. While they're fumbling around, King Yi Hian suddenly appears. Ji Young quickly explains that she just wants to find her bag, which contains a book called Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds. It was it that which brought her to Hosean. To her, that book is more precious than her life. Yi Hian looks around and immediately spots the bag. He orders his soldiers to retrieve it. Ji Young is overjoyed. But then, Yi Hian casually throws it straight into the river. "Now you have no reason to run away." Ji Young explodes, cursing him loudly, and then lowers her voice to beg, promising to do anything to get her bag back. Hearing that, Yi Hian smiles gleefully. The next morning, Ji Young and Gil Jiam are put in cages and escorted to the royal palace. Gil Jiam cries worriedly, but Ji Young comforts and promises to protect her. No matter what, she will find a way to get the book back and return to the modern era. Yi Hian is gleeful, planning to torture Ji Young to the point where she wishes she were dead. Meanwhile, the Grand Army and Mokju are still meeting in secret. The Grand Army reveals that someone tried to assassinate the king but failed. He has suspected someone and has been secretly monitoring them. Then he gives her a mission: to seduce the king, making him forget about the affairs of the court and his mother's murder, causing him to completely lose himself. He also hints that the king is about to bring a woman into the palace. Mokju is so worried and upset about it that she breaks a string on her musical instrument. "No matter who that woman is, I will torment her to the extreme, so that she understands that I am the only woman for His Highness." The children playfully tease Ji Young and Gil Jiam, calling them ghost women. Ji Young is furious, but after thinking about it, she lets it go. These kids are definitely at least 500 years older than me. But Yi Hian wants to punish the kids for daring to damage something that belongs to him. I'm talking about you. From now on, you are not allowed to look at anyone, go anywhere, or talk to anyone without my permission." Hearing that, Ji Young is bitter. First labeled a rebel, then a ghost woman, and now someone else's thing. Yi Hyun also reminds her of the basic survival rules in the palace, which are to pretend to be mute, deaf, and blind. Finally, the group arrives at the royal palace. Ji Young worries that she will become a sacrifice in place of Gyeong Dal's granddaughter, who, according to history, doesn't have a good ending. Mok Ju comes out to greet them, then hugs the king, acting deeply moved. "Your humble servant has been waiting for you until she's withered away, about to turn to dust." Then Yi Hyun happily introduces her to something new he found, which is the ghost woman, Ji Young. Even though the king calls her a ghost woman and a criminal, Mok Ju doesn't reduce her vigilance, because this is the second woman after her that the king has personally brought back. And Ji Young, hearing the name Kang Mok Chu, immediately remembers that she is infamously known as the most vicious woman in Joseon, the one who manipulates Yi Hyun into doing so many tyrannical things. Look at the laser beams shooting out of her cat eyes. She could blast a hole through my face in a second. Mok Chu secretly assesses Ji Young. She's quite lovely. His Highness definitely has feelings for her. Yi Hyun raises Ji Young's chin threateningly. "You will beg me to spare your life." But in Mok Chu's eyes, that is a very dangerous sign. Yi Hyun has someone cover Ji Young's head, and says that he has arranged a very special place for her. It turns out that he imprisons Ji Young and Gil Jium in a jail in a corner of the royal palace. The two are desperate, just hugging each other for comfort. At this moment, the king calls the royal physician to remove the arrow from his chest. When no one is paying attention, Mok Ju secretly takes the arrowhead. The royal physician reports that the strange plaster applied to the wound helped to stop the bleeding. If not, it would have been dangerous. Now Yi Hyun knows that this Ji Young actually saved his life. However, his vendetta against her cannot be ignored. Just out of the main hall, Mok Ju gives the arrowhead to Chu Wool, so that she can secretly transfer it to the Grand Army. The royal kitchen is the kitchen that prepares meals for the king. Royal chef Bong Sik, a 7th rank official, is the most powerful person here. He has an acquaintance with Chief Lady Kim of the Dowager Queen, which is why he is about to be promoted to royal head chef, meaning the head chef of the royal kitchen. In addition, there is also a high-ranking royal chef, Man Su, a trusted henchman of Kang. At this time, the Dowager Queen hears the news that the king has punished Seo Hong for his act of lese majesty. She and the concubines suspect that the king is doing this for personal revenge, because Seo Hong was the one who compared Mok Ju to Yang Gifei of the Tang dynasty, thinking that she would bewitch the king, leading to the decline of the court. Sure enough, Song Jae's action of arresting Miss Hong and causing the Seo Hong family to be punished was according to Mok Ju's wishes. Not only that, she also forces Song Jae to hand over the jewelry obtained from the Hong family, and puts all the members of the Hong family into the palace as slaves. Song Jae tries to dissuade her, because the court officials will object, but she insists. In fact, Song Jae has long been dissatisfied with Mok Ju, because she uses the king's favor to treat his father and son like servants. He sees that the king is interested in Ji Young, so he begins to consider switching to Ji Young's side. Who says Ji Young can't become someone like Mok Ju? He even has a plan to make the king fall head over heels for Ji Young. At night, a mysterious masked man knocks out the guards and breaks into the jail. Seeing that someone has come to rescue them, Ji Young and Gil Jium excitedly follow him. The palace guards discover that the prisoners have escaped, and immediately fan out to search. Mok Ju is also quickly informed of this. The masked man deftly leads the two girls past the palace guards to a strange place with masked people, dancing and fireworks shining like a Halloween festival. All 5 people dancing around the 2 girls are wearing the same mask. After completing the dance, one person pulls up the mask. It turns out to be King Yi Hyun. And the person who rescued the 2 from the jail earlier was the clown Gong Gil. As soon as Gil Jium sees him, she suddenly develops a terminal case of crush on him. Having completed the task of luring Ji Young here, Gong Gil is rewarded by King Yi Hyun with a large bag of money. He excitedly leads the group to have a drink. At this time, Ji Young remembers that this guy is the clown from the film, The King and the Clown, that she once watched. Gong Gil laughs gleefully, barely able to hold himself together because of the reward money. But as soon as he reaches a secluded corner, he immediately retracts the smile on his face and takes out a secret order from the bag. It turns out that Yi Hyun secretly ordered him to investigate the mastermind behind the assassin who shot him. Meanwhile, Ji Young is grumbling with the king. What's the point of making such a fuss? To her horror, Yi Hyun has someone prepare hot irons, scaring both girls stiff. Seeing Yi Hyun tying Gil Jium to a chair, Ji Young frantically kneels and begs for mercy, promising that she will never run away again. Hearing that, Yi Hyun happily releases Gil Jium and orders Ji Young to cook him a meal. But it must be a new dish that is better than the beef dish from the day before, otherwise she will be executed immediately. Just then, Mokju arrives, seeing the king and Ji Young together. She is extremely angry but can't do anything about it. Chang Seon, the official in charge of the king's meals, leads the two girls to the Thuy Jian Lat kitchen. Both Bong Sik and Man Su are not happy to know that two women will be preparing the king's meals, because officials of this time are extremely chauvinistic, believing that women are definitely inferior to men. Both of them openly despise Ji Young, especially when she can't answer where she learned to cook. When they get into the kitchen, Ji Young is disappointed to see that there are few ingredients. Suddenly, Gil Jium's dog-like nose comes into play, leading Ji Young to a cutting board with a little bit of scrap meat. Ji Young tastes it and immediately guesses that it's venison. It turns out to be the deer that Yi Han hunted the other day. Hearing that, Ji Young smiles confidently. Gil Jium, venison is my forte. With the help of Gil Jium, Ji Young begins to make her life or death steak. Meanwhile, Bong Sik and Man Su are talking with the Dowager Queen and Mok Ju about Ji Young entering the kitchen to cook for the king. Soon after, the meal is ready. Ji Young is properly dressed to present the meal to the king. As soon as she enters, she secretly despises the tyrant. Why does a grown man take off his shirt like that? But he controls her life and death, so she has to put up with it. She introduces this as a meal, originating from French royal cuisine. But to Yi Hyun's ears, it sounds like some kind of gibberish. The appetizer is raw meat mixed with various vegetables and raw egg yolks, served with seaweed snacks. Ji Young personally mixes it for the king, both making it and supplementing his knowledge. This is called table service. Watching and enjoying the food being prepared in front of you helps to stimulate the appetite. Yi Hyun doesn't eat it right away, but has the chief lady taste it first. After eating, Malim nods and praises it. At this time, Yi Hyun is at ease to enjoy it. As soon as he chews a bite, he feels like he's in the middle of a vast field with herds of plump deer. He has eaten raw meat before, but this is fatter and sweeter, both strong and shy, leaving a lingering taste on his tongue. The next dish is a thick soup cooked with milk and beans. This dish has a very special aroma. Ji Young explains that for her, scent is more important than taste, because we can only perceive 5 basic tastes: sour, spicy, salty, sweet, and bitter. But scents are countless and diverse. As before, Yi Hyun has Malim taste it before daring to eat. This scent is not ostentatious, but delicately fresh, and the taste is very light, like dewy beans sparkling in the early morning sun, each one bursting out of its shell. Finally, the main course is venison tongue steak. Ji Young grills the meat on the spot with a charcoal stove for the king. This will enhance the texture as well as the flavor and aroma. According to history, deer symbolize kings, and deer tongue is considered one of the 8 extremely rare delicacies. Ji Young thinks to herself, he has an insatiable desire for power, an extreme love of novelty, and an extremely sensitive sense of taste. This is the best dish to satisfy all the desires of the tyrant Yi Hyun. And Yi Hyun must also secretly admit that her technique far exceeds this era. He asks her curiously where she learned these things. Ji Young still insists that she comes from the future, causing Yi Hyun and Mal Im to sigh in pity. She has talent, but she's crazy. Anyway, Yi Hyun is very satisfied with his first royal meal. For this last dish, he asks Ji Young to taste it instead of Mal Im. Seeing her try it and nod with a smile, Yi Hyun suddenly remembers his mother feeding him when he was young. He then asks Ji Young to feed him a piece. As soon as he eats it, he smiles innocently, like a boy being fed by his mother, then is stunned for a long time because of the emotion. How do you see through my heart? How did you know I would like this dish? Ji Young says she studied Yi Hyun and even won a competition with this dish. She never expected to personally serve him now. Hearing that, Yi Hyun is curious about the name Yi Hyun that Ji Young has mentioned many times. She's afraid that telling the whole story would be too risky, so she pretends to have a brain fart and can't remember. Outside, Mok Ju demands to see the king, but is stopped by Chang Seon. She still barges in, but as soon as she opens the door, she sees the king and Ji Young laughing and talking happily. At this time, Chang Seon also slams the door shut. Mok Ju gets angry and speaks loudly, which Yi Hyun hears inside. She then says that she has brought a precious painting, but if this is not a convenient time, then she will take her leave. Even though she says that, she is confident that Yi Hyun will let her in. To her surprise, the king actually lets her leave, so Mok Ju has to leave in a huff. Ji Young is also about to leave, but is pulled back by Yi Hyun. He looks at her deeply and then gets close to her face. "You are not an ordinary woman. I choose you." Choose her to do what? Ji Young's heart is about to fall out. Is he choosing to bestow his grace? She's not worried about that, but worried about changing history. At this time, Song Jae finds her and gives her an order. Every time she serves the king, she must report everything to him. In return, he will become her ally. Just now was the first time Mokju was sent away by His Highness, just because of a royal meal. From now on, she will target her and find ways to eliminate her. If she doesn't have someone to help her, it will be difficult to survive here. I will secretly support you and help you survive. Ji Young knows that his reasoning is accurate, but in reality, what she needs most is not an ally. She sets a condition for cooperation, which is that he must help her find her bag, which in this era is called a bag. It fell into the forest. What Ji Young doesn't know is that her bag is not in the forest or the river, but in someone's drawer. Mokju is still furious about being sent away by the king. Following Chu Wol's plan, she orders Man Su to find a way to drive Ji Young out of the royal kitchen. Meanwhile, Man Su tastes the leftover soup cooked by Ji Young and finds it so delicious that tears start streaming down his face. As a result, he gets so angry that he vows never to live under the same sky as her. From that day on, Ji Young and Gil Jiam constantly encounter incidents in the royal kitchen. One day, the firewood is wet and can't be lit. The next day, a snake crawls out of the rice jar. Luckily, Gil Jiam powerfully grabs it. Later, a swarm of cockroaches runs rampant, making Ji Young scream. While asking Gil Jiam to be a cockroach-slaying hero, Ji Young sees the culprit, Man Su and his minions openly releasing cockroaches into the kitchen. After a long and tiring day, the two girls obediently return to the jail, putting on their own shackles and locking them. Now they find this place even more comfortable than outside. If only His Highness would let them stay here all day. But if they reported the bullying to the king, the other royal chefs might lose their lives, and the two of them can't bear to be so ruthless. The next day, Song Jae reports that the high-ranking officials have all simultaneously requested to resign. They are dissatisfied with Yi Hyun's absence from the former's death anniversary ceremony, and the fact that he exiled the entire Seo Hong family. If Seo Hong is to be punished for the crime of treason, then Ji Young must also be punished for that crime. Yi Hyun gets angry and calls Ji Young up to the main hall. During the evening session, the high-ranking officials all speak harshly, demanding that the king punish Ji Young for the crime of treason. Only Song Jae and his father try to defend Ji Young, but it's of no use. The officials don't listen to the king, and continuously pressure him to execute Ji Young and retract the order to exile Jiang Dao. Yi Hyun, boiling with anger, snaps back. "Is what you want a puppet king? Okay, I'm willing to issue an order." Just then, Ji Young is escorted by palace guards to the main hall. It turns out that today's incident was due to Chu Wol spreading rumors on Mokju's orders. This time, Ji Young is definitely in trouble. All afternoon, they demand Ji Young's head to restore order and law to the country. The king draws his gleaming sword and points it straight at her. Ji Young, in despair, thinks she's about to meet her ancestors. But instead of swinging the sword, Yi Hyun says coldly, "From now on, you will become the royal head chef. Every day you must cook for me. But if you repeat even one dish, or if it doesn't suit my taste, you will be executed." The officials are afraid that Ji Young will become a second Mokju, making the king infatuated and neglecting the court. Therefore, they are determined to find a way to get rid of her at all costs. Mokju is furious to learn that Ji Young has not only not been executed, but has also been appointed royal head chef. She decides to meet the Dowager Queen to badmouth Ji Young's murky origins and blame her for the assassination attempt on the king. The Dowager Queen also wants to get rid of Ji Young, but has no right to interfere in the royal kitchen. Mokju then suggests that she personally test Ji Young's skills. Meanwhile, Ji Young and Gil Jiam are overjoyed to have escaped the cold prison and been transferred to a new spacious room. The floor is also heated. The two hug each other with joy, thinking that all the difficulties are over. Meanwhile, the royal chefs are furious that a woman has suddenly appeared and taken the position of royal head chef. They are determined to find a way to force her to leave voluntarily. The next day, the two girls excitedly go to work for the first time. Gil Jiam's dream of being a court lady in the royal kitchen has come true. Ji Young is determined not to let those royal chefs bully her anymore. Now she's their boss. At this time, Bong Sik is instructing the others to do everything possible to sabotage Ji Young. Sharpen the knives to the point where they can't even cut tofu. Mix salt into the flour, hide all the soy sauce and soybean paste, and hide all the good meat. The group is sure that Ji Young will have a miserable day today. Unexpectedly, immediately after taking office, Ji Young doesn't give any instructions. but tells them to prepare the royal meal for the king themselves. Bong Sik and Man Su should take care of everything and take responsibility for themselves. I've already told His Highness that I won't be doing anything for now. I'll just be observing. The royal chefs are completely shocked by this twist. If she's telling the truth, today will be their day of doom. The group frantically sharpens the knives and goes to find the things they hid earlier. It turns out that Ji Young has experienced this countless times, so it's too easy to outsmart them. Just then, Chief Lady Kim arrives to summon Ji Young to meet the Dowager Queen. When Ji Young arrives, she immediately receives bullet-like stares from the concubines. The Dowager Queen, in the name of the king's grandmother, will test her skills to see if she is truly talented, or if she is using cheap tricks to deceive the king's tongue. She will have to compete with the high-ranking royal chefs. If she loses, she will lose her hands. If you want to keep your hands, convince me with your cooking skills. At this time, Ji Young sees Mokju's smug smile, and immediately knows that she is the one who arranged this. Meanwhile, the royal guard gives the king a letter from the Ji Doctrine. In it, he announces that he has found the draft, and will meet the king tonight at the hour of 9:11 p.m. Yi Hyun has been searching for this draft for many years. It will reveal the secret behind his mother's death. Just then, Song Jae comes to report that the Dowager Queen wants to test Ji Young's cooking skills, and Mokju is also present. Very quickly, 3 cooking stations are set up for Ji Young to compete with the 2 high-ranking royal chefs. Mokju smiles smugly, because the Dowager Queen is a picky eater, barely liking anything. She only likes one thing, which Man Su has probably figured out. At this time, King Yi Hyun appears. His grandmother criticizes her grandson for caring too much about Ji Young. To her surprise, her grandson snaps back, saying that she has overstepped her authority by touching his person. If Ji Young loses and has her hands chopped off, then the other royal chefs should also have their hands chopped off if they lose. Not giving her a chance to object, Yi Hyun declares that, except for the winner, the rest will have their hands chopped off. He even has someone bring out a terrifying knife, making all 3 contestants tremble. The tyrant himself is excited, as if he's about to watch something fun. Ji Young, if you really come from the future, show them a new dish that only you can make. Ji Young notices, as she steps down to write the exam question, that the Dowager Queen stumbles, as if she's suffering from cerebral ischemia. She sets the exam question as filial piety. The dishes must express filial piety. The ingredients must include tofu and fermented soybean paste. The completion time is 2 hours. Ji Young knows herself well. If she cooks traditional court dishes, she won't have a chance to win. She suddenly remembers the soybean paste spaghetti that her dad used to make for her, and decides to make that dish for the exam. To make a delicious dish, you must have good ingredients. The 2 royal chefs push Ji Young aside to grab all the best ingredients. They even take almost all of the main ingredient in the exam question, soybean paste. Then they only leave a few broken pieces of tofu. Ji Young is worried because she doesn't have enough soybean paste when she accidentally sees spinach drying nearby. And spinach is good for bones and anemia, which is perfect for the Dowager Queen's health. She decides to make spinach pesto. Chun Sik is wondering why she hasn't returned to the kitchen. Ji Young then asks him for some soybean paste, because the other royal chefs have taken all the soybean paste from the jars. It turns out that it's soybean paste made from black soybeans, which is why it's so rich and fragrant. He says that there's no more black soybean paste, but there's 3-year fermented soybean paste in the backyard. While Ji Young goes to get the soybean paste, the other 2 contestants have already started cooking. Bong Sik makes chicken, while Man Su makes fish. They show off their incredibly skilled knife skills, both cooking and dissing each other's skills. At this time, Ji Young returns to the kitchen with her ingredients. She cracks eggs into flour and starts kneading the dough. The competition atmosphere is extremely tense. The great ladies gossip that Ji Young seems to be making an overly simple noodle dish. Then they see her chopping spinach, which they call 3-tiered greens, and only eat after drying. But Ji Young is grinding it with other things. She is definitely doomed. Meanwhile, the 2 royal chefs are making their signature court dishes. The ladies praise them lavishly, but only the king thinks that the dishes are too familiar. He only has expectations for Ji Young, because her dishes always amaze him. Grandmother should taste them herself. The tongue can lie, but the taste buds only tell the truth. A portion of time has passed. Ji Young remembers what Chun Sik mentioned earlier. The Dowager Queen often requests soybean soup, because it has its own meaning for her. Since she was a child, she has always had a poor appetite, always remembering the dish her mother made before entering the palace. It was a soup cooked with soybean paste from the area near the river, which had a salty and sweet taste. Mixing rice into the soup and eating it was very delicious. The royal chefs had tried to recreate that flavor, but she always said it wasn't right. So what created the salty and sweet taste that the Dowager Queen remembered so well? Bong Sik realizes he accidentally used up all the green onions, so he runs over to ask Man Su, but he refuses. Why would he help a rival competing for the position of royal head chef? The two scuffle and drop the bunch of green onions on the ground. In the end, Bong Sik manages to snatch a few strands of green onions. Suddenly, an idea flashes in Ji Young's head. She decides to run to get more ingredients. But Chief Lady Kim orders the court ladies to hold her back and escort her to the king. Mokju claims that taking more ingredients during the competition is against the rules. Ji Young must have realized that she was inferior to the other royal chefs, so she's trying to change the dish she was going to cook. Ji Young retorts that the rules don't prohibit using more ingredients. I indeed changed my mind about the dish I wanted to cook, but the reason isn't what you say. At this time, the king speaks up. This isn't fair, but the law also doesn't prohibit it. So why not let her use one more ingredient? And if she still loses, chop off both her hands? Hearing that, the Dowager Queen agrees, and Ji Young has no choice but to accept her fate. Losing one hand or two hands, it's all the same. But she wasted a lot of time just now, so if she goes to get the ingredient herself, she won't be able to finish the dish. Ji Young asks Gil Jiam to run and get it for her. Seeing that, Mokju immediately signals Chuwul to stop her. Ji Young starts cooking the broth, then puts the soybean paste in a pan and pours strong liquor over it, causing the pan to burst into flames. Doing so will add a smoky flavor to the soybean paste. This is the only way to beat the black soybean paste of the other two. For the tofu, while Bong Sik uses a little oil, Ji Young drops the tofu into a pan full of oil, something that people in this era have never seen before. At the same time, Gil Jiam is running back with the ingredient when Chuwul pushes her, causing her to fall and hit her head on the ground. She pulls out a hairpin, preparing to finish off Gil Jiam. Ji Young is frantic, because Gil Jiam hasn't returned yet, while the other two have almost finished their dishes and are starting to present them. 3/4 of the time has passed when Gil Jiam runs back with the new ingredient. Ji Young is worried when she sees her head bleeding, but Gil Jiam says she'll explain later. Ji Young immediately puts the new ingredient into the broth. The ladies are all confused. No one knows what that ingredient is, and they even worry that eating it will make them sick. Seeing that the Dowager Queen is about to stop the competition, the king angrily speaks up. You just mentioned the rules? It is because you doubted the talent of the royal head chef that this competition is taking place. In other words, you are doubting the wisdom and authority of the king who appointed her. If we stop the competition before even tasting the food, just because the royal chef is cooking a strange dish, how will I look as the person who ordered them to compete for the position of royal head chef? Hearing that, the Dowager Queen has no choice but to let Ji Young continue. Finally, the time is up, and all three have managed to complete their dishes. The first dish to be tasted is the royal steamed dumplings, with wrappers made from Taizan fish. This is Man Su's specialty. This dish is softer and more moist than regular dumplings. The secret is that the wrapper is made from thinly sliced flathead mullet meat, so thin that it can be seen through. The filling is made from minced beef, stir-fried cucumbers, mung bean sprouts, and tofu, which blend and burst out at the same time, spreading the flavor in the mouth. The king also nods and praises it, but there is no taste of soybean paste in the dish. Soybean paste is only mixed with vinegar and honey to make a dipping sauce. Mokju, of course, praises him lavishly. Man Su explains that His Highness is the father of the people. Royal subjects from all over send ingredients like children sending them to their parents. I used those ingredients to make this dish, so it is definitely called filial piety. Hearing that, the king shakes his head. If that's the case, then wouldn't every dish in the palace be the same? Because they are all made from ingredients that are offered as tribute. Bong Sik's next dish is royal tofu hot pot. This is a dish that the Dowager Queen really liked at the last banquet. Instead of using beef for the filling, I used minced chicken, which is less oily. Thanks to that, the dish has a light and delicate flavor. I fry the tofu pieces on a griddle, then tie them with water parsley to add more aroma. Then, I cook it in chicken broth mixed with black soybean paste to create a rich flavor. I also enhance the flavor with shiitake mushrooms from Jinan and cordyceps, which are great for nourishing energy. This is a hot dish that parents and children gather around to enjoy together. That is a symbol of a harmonious family and filial piety. Except for Mokju, who isn't happy that her chicken dish is being overshadowed. The Dowager Queen and the concubines are all very fond of this dish. To their surprise, the king still shakes his head, because that luxurious dish cannot represent the love of children for their parents. It's Ji Young's turn. Her dish is just a simple rice soup, which surprises and despises everyone. She explains that this is a special soybean soup for the Dowager Queen. The king tastes a sip and smiles with satisfaction. so she had thought of adding this. The Dowager Queen tastes it and is stunned, making Mokju think that she doesn't like it. Before Ji Young can explain the filial piety in the dish, Mokju loudly scolds and threatens her. To everyone's surprise, the Dowager Queen interrupts and says that this dish truly represents filial piety. She mixes rice into the soup and eats it, reminiscing about the last meal her mother cooked for her before she entered the palace. It was a meal full of her mother's love that she can never forget. She is moved to tears because she feels that flavor in Ji Young's dish. At this time, Ji Young reveals that the ingredient she added was clams. To make the soup have a sweet and clean taste, there's nothing better than clams. The king comments that the taste of clams has made the soup much cleaner. Well said, my tyrant. Seeing Ji Young and the king working together, Mokju is even more jealous. Only now does the Dowager Queen know that clams are the secret to the salty and sweet taste that she has been searching for her entire life. The last bowl of soybean soup that her mother cooked for her definitely had the taste of clams from the river. She also praises the soft and sweet spinach. Ji Young explains that she noticed that she couldn't keep her balance while riding, and her hands were shaking. And spinach is good for bones and anemia, so eating it regularly will be beneficial for her health. There is a saying that medicine and food have the same origin. Instead of relying on the help of bitter medicine, I hope that you can maintain your health with delicious food. At this point, she no longer has any doubts about Ji Young's character and talent. She even asks her to cook this dish for her again in the future. Finally, she announces that the winner of today's competition is Ji Young. From this moment on, she is officially the royal head chef of the royal kitchen. The joy of one person is the suffering of another. It's time for punishment. Yi Heon smiles with amusement, ordering the two losing royal chefs to kneel before the executioner's blade, placing their hands under the blade. The two thought they were about to become cripples, but Ji Young unexpectedly stood up to stop them. If he cuts off their hands, it will ruin the competition. The theme of the competition is filial piety. All this time, the great king's wife maintained her health with the food prepared by these two imperial chefs. Isn't chopping off the hands of these two royal chefs unfilial? The tyrant is furious at being lectured by Ji Young, determined to chop off the two men's hands anyway. At this time, the Dowager Queen speaks up to stop him. She confesses that she feels sad when Yi Heon despises deer and takes pleasure in hunting them, just because the late king loved them. Then she heard that Ji Young offered the king venison. That's why she came up with the theme of filial piety to scold her. But today, she has made her rethink the concept of filial piety through her dish. So let's end the matter here. Everyone kneels, begging the king to spare the two royal chefs. The desperate pleas suddenly cause Yi Heon to have a headache and feel dizzy. He tries to regain his composure and announces that he will spare the two losing royal chefs, but they will have to study under the tutelage of the royal chef Ji Young for a period of time. As a way to punish them, the Dowager Queen happily invites Yi Heon to drink tea together. To her surprise, he coldly refuses, leaving her embarrassed. When they return to the palace, the great ladies discuss why the king suddenly flew into a rage after the competition ended. Could it be that Yi Heon has learned about the incident from the past? It turns out that his biological mother was deposed by the Dowager Queen and then poisoned to death. Meanwhile, Yi Heon is secretly informed by Song Jae that Mokju was the one who framed Ji Young. He goes to see her to get to the bottom of it. After being saved by Ji Young, Bong Sik shyly expresses his gratitude and takes the initiative to offer her a cushion to sit on. But Man Su is still arrogant, saying that she just got lucky. Ji Young pretends to be hungry and pats her arm. At that time, Man Su reluctantly goes to make dumplings for her. Now Ji Young asks about the bloodstain on Giljium's head. She tells her that when she went to get the clams for Ji Young, someone suddenly attacked her, causing her to fall and hit her head on the ground. At that time, her vision was blurred, so she couldn't see the face of the person. Luckily, the clown showed up in time and chased that person away. Mokju is planning a new scheme to harm Ji Young. This time, she decides not to act rashly, but to set a trap. At this moment, the king arrives and questions her. I heard you were the one who arranged the competition? The false rumor that Yang Da was exiled because of the royal chef, Ji also originated from this Tu Hong Vian. She has no way to justify herself, only to use crocodile tears and remind the king not to forget his mission to avenge the unjust death of his birth mother. Even though she knows that Yi Heon is angry, she deliberately keeps mentioning his birth mother. Immediately afterwards, Yi Heon has a splitting headache, staggers out of there. Meanwhile, the Grand Army's henchmen have discovered that the person who assassinated the king is in their ranks. That person didn't wait for an opportunity, according to the Grand Army's orders, and acted on his own. More surprisingly, according to the henchman's words, the assassin wore a mask and was as swift as the wind. Now that he knows that it was the clown Gong Gil, The Grand Army gives him a secret mission tonight. Song Jae brings Ji Young a box of precious jewelry. This is a good opportunity to win over His Highness. His Highness likes women to be well dressed, so beautify yourself with this jewelry. Ji Young is shocked and explains that nothing is going on between her and the king. His Highness doesn't like me that much. Song Jae then reveals that the king has endured a lot to protect her. He must like you then. In the evening, Ji Young is about to cook the first meal for the king. Suddenly, Chun Sik runs over in a panic, reporting that the king had a seizure at the palace. He has returned to the palace to rest, but is in an extremely sensitive state. The person who offers the royal meal tonight may lose their life, so you must check carefully before offering it up. As he leaves, Bong Sik tells Ji Young that the king occasionally has fits of rage, throwing tables and chairs and smashing everything, which is a common occurrence. Sometimes he trembles all over and says he hears something. When it gets really bad, everyone in the palace is petrified with fear. Only Mok Ju can calm him down. Ji Young has never heard in history books that the tyrant Yi Hyun had this condition. Normally, he doesn't seem unusual at all. Maybe the traits of a tyrant and strange behavior are symptoms of a damaged heart. Plus, with the story of his mother being deposed, she decides to cook a dish to comfort the king. With that, she starts making fresh noodles, blanching them in boiling water, then cooking the sauce and adding the noodles to stir fry until they absorb the sauce. In just a moment, she finishes a delicious plate of spaghetti. At this time, in the royal residence, the tyrant is going crazy, yelling and throwing swords around, making the court ladies cry in fear. When Mal Im and Ji Young bring in the meal, he still yells and chases everyone out. As they retreat, he suddenly tells Ji Young to stay. She has to force a fake smile. In the end, she's the only one left with the tyrant. Ji Young introduces today's special dish as soybean paste spaghetti. The noodles are made from buckwheat flour, and the sauce is made from stir-fried, salty soybean paste with rich flavored clams. Hearing that, Yi Hyun flares up because he already ate soybean paste this afternoon. But Ji Young explains that this dish is completely different. As usual, she has to taste it first to ensure safety. He mimics her way of picking up the noodles with chopsticks but fails, getting frustrated. Ji Young gently twirls the noodles around the chopsticks and feeds him like she's feeding a child. As soon as he eats the first bite, he is no longer angry but smiles with satisfaction. Then he forgets all etiquette and stuffs his face, devouring it. An expression of bliss appears on his face. In just a few moments, he cleans the plate. The soybean paste with spinach is both smooth and sweet. The buckwheat brings earthiness, and the clams give a deep taste at the end that lingers in the mouth. Ji Young confides that her mother passed away when she was young. This is the dish her father cooked for her whenever she was sad. Yi Hyun consoles her that she must feel very lonely, and she guesses that he must be very lonely because he has no one to share with. He then asks where her father is. Ji Young repeats that she really comes from the future. If she had the book in her bag, she could prove it. That book is called Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds. I believe it was that brought me across time to here. Even though he doesn't quite understand, Yi Hyun is still curious and asks her about the future. If you're telling the truth, I'll believe you and find your bag for you. Ji Young knows that the Jeopsja Literati Purge event is about to happen, when the tyrant Yi Hyun will execute officials related to his birth mother's death. Then there will be a rebellion, and the tyrant will be deposed. But how can she dare say that when history cannot be changed? She then utters a few vague sentences. Your Highness must live well this year. Even if you're angry, you must restrain yourself, and be careful with those close to you. In fact, Ji Young is also worried that the Jeopsja Literati Purge will happen. But first, she has to worry about her own well-being. Meanwhile, Yi Hyun carefully writes down the name and draws a picture of the spaghetti that he just ate in a diary. In addition, there is a very important event tonight. The Ji Doctrine will hand over the draft, which contains the secret about what happened to Yi Hyun's birth mother 20 years ago. After finishing the diary, remembering Ji Young's book called Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds, he writes that name on the cloth and pastes it on the cover of the diary. At that moment, the book, Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds, which was glowing somewhere, suddenly goes out. Just as he hides the diary in the drawer, the royal guard comes to report that Ji has disappeared. At the meeting point, they only find a blood-stained card. The two guessed that he had been attacked by an assassin, but no one else knew about the order I issued. Who could have done this? What serious crime did my mother commit that they are trying to cover up so desperately? Yi Hyun suspects everyone, from the Dowager Queen to the concubines, and all the great officials in the court. Each of them is likely connected to his mother's death. I can't trust anyone. Anyway, I've always been alone. It's late at night, but Yi Hyun doesn't go back to rest. Instead, he drowns his sorrows in alcohol. Chang Seon worries that the king will harm his health by drinking on an empty stomach. so he has no choice but to wake up Ji Young to make some snacks. Ji Young is furious at being woken up to cook when she was sleeping soundly. When she brings it, the tyrant has already passed out from being drunk. "You've come?" He suddenly pulls her down to lie next to him. "Just stay still like this for a moment." So Ji Young has no choice but to lie still there, watching tears flow from Yi Hyun's eyes. After a while, he suddenly opens his eyes and looks at her deeply. And what has to happen, happens. The female chef and the tyrant share their first kiss. In the morning, the royal chefs are terrified to see Ji Young just sitting and pounding dried fish. Bop, bop, mercilessly. She was up all night, so her eyes are sunken and dark like an owl. Her face grim as if she wants to devour her enemies. "You're dead meat, you're dead meat." The two high-ranking royal chefs barely manage to say good morning before Ji Young greets them back with a murderous glare. So the group makes an excuse to quickly disappear to preserve their lives. But it's time to prepare breakfast for the king. No matter how much she hates him, Ji Young still has to make hangover soup for that evil guy. It's just a pity that there's no level 10 chili powder here for him to taste. Gil Jiam feels sorry for the unlucky fish that had to die twice. Hearing that, Ji Young stops pounding and starts tearing the fish with her bare hands, even more frantically than before. Breakfast is finally complete. Ji Young offers it to the king with a murderous look on her face. "Your Highness drank too much last night, so I prepared dried pollock to help with the hangover. This is a clear soup in the French style." The king sips a mouthful and smiles with satisfaction. "Soup made with dried pollock. Why don't I see any fish?" Ji Young grits her teeth and replies, "I ground the fish into small pieces to make it easier to eat. Please eat more. See if there's anything that bothers you." Yi Hyun is chilled to the bone by her threatening tone. He feels a pang of guilt and orders everyone to leave, only keeping her there. When it's just the two of them, the king asks, "What happened last night?" Seeing him looking blank, as if he really doesn't know anything, Ji Young is furious and reenacts the scene of him hugging her yesterday. As a result, the tyrant is still clueless and doesn't understand anything. Ji Young can't say it out loud, so she emphasizes, "Your Highness is not my type." To her surprise, the tyrant laughs, reminding her that he only considers her a chef and doesn't see her as a woman at all. This is just unbelievable. Ji Young just whispers to him to be careful when drinking alcohol at night. As she retreats, she still gives him a fiery glare. After she leaves, the king immediately calls Chang Xian to ask about what happened last night. He hesitates a little before telling the truth. "Your lips touched." At this time, the memory of last night's lip contact returns to the tyrant. Recalling Ji Young's fiery glare just now, the tyrant is panicked and doesn't know what to do. Continue as if nothing happened, or find a way to appease her anger. But wait, why should I worry about this? I am the great king of this land, and she's just a royal chef. Outside, Ji Young is muttering curses at the evil guy, when a long-haired romantic guy appears. But she doesn't recognize who this person is. When he performs a few moves, she remembers that he's the clown Gong Gil from that day, and also the one who saved Gil Jiam during the cooking competition. She asks him if he saw the culprit who caused that incident. Gong Gil says he didn't see the face, but it was a court lady. He tells her to remind Gil Jiam to be careful during this time. After speaking, he somersaults a few times, and then flies up the wall, disappearing. In Ji Young's eyes, this clown is indeed bizarre, but Gong Gil is not as crazy as he seems. In fact, he entered the palace to find his enemy. That day, when he saved Gil Jiam, he picked up the court lady's hairpin, and it fit perfectly into a case that he always keeps with him. Years ago, Gong Gil's sister was captured and taken to the palace, after which she returned home only to pass away. Gong Gil discovered that his sister's hand was tightly clutching this hairpin case, which is why he found a way to enter the palace to avenge his sister. Meanwhile, in the palace, Chu Wol assures Mok Ju that Gong Gil didn't recognize her that day. Mok Ju orders her men to investigate Gong Gil thoroughly, to discover why he's interfering in Ji Young's affairs. Song Jae reports to the king that the smuggling of ginseng has been rampant recently, to the point where there isn't enough to send to the palace. In addition to that, he's heard that the ambassador from Great Ming will arrive in 4 days. And it's also because of that. Yi Hyun is furious, saying that the Great Ming has secretly bought up all the ginseng already. Now they want to bring up diplomatic issues to take all of Korea's ginseng? This time, the ambassador from Great Ming is the eunuch Yu Kun, the leader of the 8 tigers. Or rather, the 8 powerful board members appointed by the emperor of Great Ming. As soon as he hears the name Yu Kun, Yi Hyun gets angry, because 2 years ago, he punished an ambassador from Great Ming, agreeing to exempt Korea from sending tribute women. Yi Hyun orders an investigation to see what schemes he has this time. Suddenly, Song Jae mentions the story of the king grabbing Ji Young yesterday. At first, the king pretends not to understand, but then he has to admit it and ask his friend for advice. Song Jae suggests giving her a gift to appease her anger. But what to give? Silk, a hairpin, or a ring? Song Jae shakes his head, saying that he has to give her what she likes, and every woman likes different things. So he should think carefully about this matter. In the court session, the main topic of discussion is how to receive the ambassador from the Great Ming. The officials are divided into two factions. One faction advocates a grand reception and offering the ambassador 200 kwon of silver, saying that this is a mandatory act to maintain friendly relations with the Great Ming. Moreover, this ambassador is known for being arrogant and greedy. The other faction opposes, because that would drain almost half of the kingdom's treasury. And among the two factions, the one that agrees is overwhelming. Yi Hyun explodes, telling everyone to stop. The treasury is filled with the blood and sweat and hard work of the people. You don't think of protecting our wealth, but only aim to please and indulge their demands. Aren't you ashamed? Despite the advice to the contrary, Yi Hyun decides to prepare only the minimum amount of gifts in silver, and the reception of the delegation must be kept very simple. Later, Soo Hyuk secretly reports that they have found Ji in a village. He is still alive, but severely injured to the point of unconsciousness. So Hyuk took him to a safe place and called a doctor to treat him. To their surprise, he suddenly disappeared, with no signs of an intruder. It seems he left on his own, probably because someone is still hunting him. Chang Seon reports that Mok Ju has requested an audience, but the king says he doesn't want to meet her today. With a heavy heart, the king walks while remembering what his mother told him years ago. As king, you must know how to understand. Understand your family. Understand heaven and earth. And understand the hearts of others. At this time, the king realizes that he has unconsciously walked towards the kitchen. He remembers that, although Ji Young often confronts him, she also understands the difficulties of being a king. Back in his room, Yi Hyun is racking his brains, thinking about so many things that he skips dinner. Meanwhile, Mok Ju is furious to hear that the king and Ji Young kissed last night. She is determined to win back the king's heart by offering him a delicious meal after the health checkup. When she hears the news that the king skipped dinner, Ji Young decides that she will still prepare the royal meal. If the king doesn't want to eat it, then so be it. She excitedly starts working, unaware that Man Soo is trembling in his hands, carrying a bag of arsenic. This is the poison that Mok Ju gave him, ordering him to put it in the royal meal that the ghost woman cooks for the king. Later, Ji Young finishes her French cream sauce stewed chicken, but the king doesn't want to eat it. The next breakfast, then lunch, then dinner, the situation remains unchanged. After a long day of work, Ji Young sits alone and misses her dad. She hopes that her dad isn't skipping meals like the king. She looks at the moon and suddenly imagines the king's smiling face as he enjoys her cooking. She worries that the king will affect his health if he keeps skipping meals, but she doesn't know what to do. At the same time, the king is also looking at the moon, unconsciously remembering the times when Ji Young fed him. Am I thinking about you because I'm hungry? Or am I hungry because I'm thinking about you? Suddenly, he says that he's hungry and asks about dinner, shocking Chang Seon. Just a moment later, Ji Young finishes making the dish to offer up. Because the king hadn't eaten anything all day, she made chicken soup to soothe his stomach. In addition, there's radish water kimchi, which is easy to digest and stimulates the appetite. The king sips a spoonful and nods, praising it. Then he eats the whole bowl of soup, looking at Ji Young very happily. That makes her very proud, skipping all the way back. The king sees it and laughs with amusement. He suddenly realizes that his heart beats very fast every time he sees her. Meanwhile, the Grand Army has found the one who sent the assassin to attack the king without permission. That is Yang Sun, the only survivor when his entire family was purged. That's why he is determined to kill the king to take revenge, even though he didn't have the Grand Army's permission. The Grand Army warns Yang Sun that if he is discovered, they will all be finished. So Yang Sun gives the assassin a land deed, telling him to hide his name and live in seclusion forever. To their surprise, the assassin had only taken a few steps before a group of other masked men surrounded and attacked him. He desperately fights back, and after 300 rounds, finally manages to escape. It turns out that this assassin is the clown Gong Gil. Now he knows that the Grand Army is the one behind Yang Sun. The group of masked people who assassinated Gong Gil was sent by the Grand Army, with the bodyguard Deok Chul in charge, for letting Gong Gil escape. The Grand Army warns Deok Chul that if he makes another mistake, he will have his head chopped off. Mok Ju hears that the king has started eating again, so she tells her people to order Man Soo to prepare a royal meal for the king. After the health checkup, Chun Sik brings a piece of premium beef with beautiful marbled fat. Today is the day that His Highness has a health checkup, so the Grand Army will enter the palace. Use this to prepare a special meal for them. It turns out that the Grand Army holds the position of Director General, so today he will enter the palace to conduct a thorough health check. Up for the king with the royal physician. Chu Wol comes to deliver Mok Ju's order, telling Man Su to cook 2 soups to offer the king, both made with chicken. Man Su can't hide this fact, so he directly reports it to Ji Young. She tells him to follow the order, and she will still prepare the lunch as planned. Because there is no order from the king, she announces that today's dish will be cutlet, a favorite dish of Koreans, regardless of gender or age. First, they must be chopped up to make the meat thinner, cutting the connective tissue. Take the thinned meat, marinate it with salt and pepper. Cover both sides with flour. Then dip it in beaten eggs. Because there are no breadcrumbs, they will use snowflakes made from crispy fried dough, pressing them down hard so they stick, and fry them in oil. That's it. Then, deep fry burdock as a side dish, and make a raspberry jam sauce. Finally, they will present it on a wooden plate to resemble a 5-star restaurant. Ji Young intends to put knives on the table, like modern people eat. But doing that in this era would cause all the royal chefs to lose their heads. So she decides to cut it up first. At this time, Man Su also completes the 2 soups, which look very magnificent. Mok Ju personally comes to taste them and nods in praise. Then, she turns to mock Ji Young with a few words. As she leaves, she intentionally knocks over the food that Ji Young prepared on the table, so she has to hurry to fix the dish. After the examination, the doctor concludes that although he has skipped meals, the king's health is still good. But it is best to avoid cold foods for a period of time. The Grand Army pretends to be concerned about the king's health, but Yi Hyun only smiles sarcastically. You only care about me every time after the health checkup. At this time, Ji Young and Mok Ju arrive to offer the royal meal. Mok Ju offers the dish up close, while Ji Young has to wait on the side. When the king asks why 2 portions of royal meals have been prepared, Suk Won immediately mocks Ji Young. She must think that my food isn't delicious enough, so she made more. To everyone's surprise, the king defends Ji Young. She probably prepared the meal, because there was no direct order from me. The dish that Mok Ju offers the king is cold chicken soup, which is cooked by stewing a young hen, then adding shredded chicken and ground sesame seeds. This dish is almost like medicine, making the organs healthy and helping to relieve summer heat. To her surprise, the king says he has to avoid cold foods, embarrassing her. The Grand Army then comes to the rescue, and asks what his dish is. Mok Ju then introduces that it is the bones of a yellow feathered hen that has been stewed for a long time. The highlight of this dish is wontons with a chicken-filled filling. The king realizes that both dishes are cooked with hen meat. Just waiting for that, she says. Hens may look different on the outside, but they are all the same on the inside. I prepared these 2 dishes, hoping that you would see this as a lesson, teaching you to avoid women and focus on governing the country. It turns out she is implying that Ji Young is a hen. It's Ji Young's turn to introduce her dish, which is a German dish called schnitzel. The Grand Army pretends to be knowledgeable, teaching the king that this is an edible vegetable that looks a lot like lotus leaves. But when he opens it, he realizes he's wrong. Ji Young repeats that this is beef schnitzel. The king gets a chance to be amused. Ji Young introduces that this dish contains a lot of protein, which helps restore the body and mind. Since you haven't eaten for a while, I prepared a dish made with fresh beef, which is especially delicious and nutritious. The tartar sauce is both fatty and has a sweet and sour taste. If you want to eat it sweeter, you can dip it in the raspberry jam on the side. The king marvels. This dish looks like raspberries blooming on a pancake. It's no different from a work of art. The 2 dip it in raspberry jam and put it in their mouths, their eyes lighting up like headlights. It's crispy on the outside but soft and chewy on the inside, which is called chewy inside and crispy outside. Even the Grand Army has to praise it, making Mok Ju jealous. Ji Young reminds the king to try the accompanying burdock, which will reduce the greasiness of the meat. After the 2 eat it, they complain that it's too bitter, but she explains that people often eat the leaves and stems of vegetables and throw away the roots because they are too bitter. But the truth is that the roots contain more nutrients. If you only look at a person's appearance without considering their roots, you can misunderstand that person. As she speaks, she glances at Mok Ju, causing her to fume. The king and the Grand Army each eat just a spoonful of Mok Ju's food and then put it down. Switching to Ji Young's dish, they eat and nod their heads in approval. Mok Ju is shaking with anger, vowing to take revenge on Ji Young. But Ji Young is ready to take the challenge. You are the most vicious woman of your time, but I, Ji Young, come from the future and know more than you. After eating, the king asks the 2 women if they want to be rewarded with something. Mokju says that the only thing she desires is the king's health and safety, but Ji Young doesn't want to mention the bag in front of her. So she says that she is only happy when she sees fresh ingredients, and the kitchen has them all, so there's no need for any rewards. This meal leaves a deep impression on everyone. Mokju is furious. The Grand Army is secretly calculating something, and the king is writing down the details of today's supreme meal in his diary, secretly praising Ji Young for being a wise, thoughtful, and kind woman. Meanwhile, the Im father and son are discussing the king's feelings for Ji Young. The king has thought about giving her a gift, which means he has been bewitched by her. Sung Jae knows that the gift that Ji Young desires most is the bag that she lost. He is actually the one who found it and is keeping it. He thought there was gold or something valuable inside, but when he opened it, it was all strange things that he didn't understand. The two discuss giving the bag to the king so that the king can give it to Ji Young. That way, the two will definitely become closer. So the next day, Sung Jae offers the bag to the king, making the king very happy. By the way, Sung Jae reports that the delegation from Great Ming brought 3 top chefs. It seems they have heard rumors about Yi Hyun's picky palate, so they are trying to win him over to get something. The request will definitely not be small. Meanwhile, the chief envoy Yu Kun of the Great Ming scolds and refuses to eat the dishes that the Korean side has prepared. Instead, he has the Sichuan culinary master perform. He slices tofu into diced pieces thinner than slices of cucumber, his movements as swift as a ninja. It's no different from watching a circus performance. He adds shiitake mushrooms, cucumbers, boiled shrimp, and uses herbs to soak the broth. Finally, he pours the broth over the tofu, causing it to become a blossoming flower. The Korean officials taste a sip and are stunned, speechless. Just waiting for that, the Great Ming side shouts triumphantly, "This is what we eat in a powerful country. Tell your great king that I can't eat Korean food." Chang Seon takes Ji Young to the garden that specializes in growing fruit trees for the royal palace. Ji Young has heard in the history books that this is the first greenhouse in the world. She marvels, looking at one thing after another. The king appears and tells her that she can freely use this place. You need fresh ingredients to cook more delicious dishes. In the area for researching poisonous plants, Ji Young shouts excitedly when she sees chili peppers. "This is gochu pepper. Now I can make gochu garu chili powder." With that, she takes a bite. The king says that this chili pepper was a gift from Westerners, but it was so spicy that people died after trying it. So it was planted here to make poison. While Ji Young is happy as if she has struck gold, Yi Hyun suddenly takes out her bag. Ji Young is so happy that she hugs the king, making his face turn red. Seeing that she is so happy that she is about to cry, the king takes the opportunity to apologize for the lip contact last time. Now Ji Young understands. This is a gift to make her happy. Ji Young asks why. Yi Hyun thinks, "Maybe I start to think you are a woman." The king doesn't dare say it and turns away shyly. "That's because I'm satisfied with the food you cook. Why you have to turn away when you say that? Why are you backing away?" The king stumbles around awkwardly and falls. Ji Young tries to catch him, but instead falls on top of him. The two look at each other deeply, like that, for about an hour. Yi Hyun panics, blaming Ji Young to hide his embarrassment. "If you didn't get so close, I wouldn't have fallen." He says that, but as soon as he sees that her hand is scratched, he swoops in, blowing on it to ease the pain, and even wants to call the royal physician. Ji Young says, "I'm in the kitchen. Getting cuts and scrapes is normal." So Yi Hyun demands that all the knives in the kitchen be dulled. But Ji Young says, "There's no need because I got my bag back, so I'll be going back now." To her surprise, when she reaches into the bag, the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds book is nowhere to be found. Without the book, there's no ticket back to the future. Ji Young collapses, sitting in a daze. Yi Hyun says firmly, "When I received the bag from Sung Jae, there was no book." Sung Jae also swears, "I didn't see any book when I picked up the bag." Seeing her looking lost, the king consoles her, promising to send his men into the forest to search, even offering a reward to whoever finds it. As she trudges back to the kitchen, Ji Young comes across Gil Jeum and the royal chefs having a drinking party. It turns out that the wine has been aged for 7 days. A wine that even the king praised as so delicious that he wanted to keep it in his mouth forever. The chefs are caught red-handed by Ji Young, so they invite her to have a drink to appease her. Unexpectedly, they get to enjoy an unsolicited live musical show. Ji Young isn't happy singing alone, so she forces the royal chefs to dance and bang on instruments to the rhythm. And together they break loose and have a lively time. When she wakes up, Ji Young is shocked and panicked, because she hasn't prepared dinner for the king. But Gil Jeum says, the king has already ordered Bong Sik to do it. She wonders, what happened that Ji Young got so drunk? and kept muttering about the chronicles of gazing at clouds. It turns out that, in her drunken state, Ji Young kept repeating the story about losing the book. Seeing her looking dejected because she lost hope of returning, Gil Jiam consoles her. His Highness promised to find it for you, so he will definitely find it. At the same time, Yi Hyun remembers Ji Young insisting on returning to the future. In Yi Hyun's mind, it's still vague. He doesn't understand what that country is, or how many miles away it is. But thinking about her wanting to leave him, a hint of sadness flashes in his eyes. The next day, Yi Hyun learns that the ambassador from Great Ming is refusing to eat Korean food. And the officials are arguing fiercely again. One proposes, let's treat the delegation with the food from the Great Ming that they usually eat. If we starve them, they may use that as an excuse to force us to buy their waste products again. The other argues, we can't engage in such cowardly diplomacy. We may lose our advantage if we only try to please the delegation. Yi Hyun says, everyone be quiet. I heard they brought 3 of the best chefs. They won't starve. Whatever their plan is, we can't act according to their wishes. Just follow the rules. A few days later, the delegation from Great Ming and their entourage finally arrived at the royal palace. Chun Sik orders the kitchen to prepare some light food to welcome them. He hears that they won't eat Korean food because they don't like the taste. And the chief envoy Yu Kun is a famous eunuch with the refined palate of the Great Ming, who has tasted every delicacy in the world. He makes the chefs of the Great Ming compete with the chefs of Korea, just for fun. They have competed and embarrassed Korean chefs in every region they have traveled to. Hearing that, Ji Young decides to serve a dish that he has never tasted before. King Yi Hyun personally comes out to greet them, expressing his concern about the food and drink for the delegation from Great Ming. The chief envoy Yu Kun boastfully says, we brought chefs from Great Ming so we won't starve. They're not just chefs, but also bodyguards. Among the 3 chefs from Great Ming, the leader is Tang Bailong, a culinary legend of Sichuan, and also a well-known martial arts master. Next is the fairy of Sichuan cuisine, Ya Feixiu, who is Tang Bailong's granddaughter and apprentice. It is said that she combines Sichuan cuisine with other regions to create new traditional dishes. Finally, there is the most mysterious chef, Kong Wen Li, a specialist in Shandong Kung Fu cuisine. It is rumored that he is a descendant of Confucius. His cooking techniques and diplomacy are said to be perfectly accurate. A chef that sounds like a martial arts novel. Ji Young is curious, but she is completely confident in her cooking skills. Meanwhile, Yu Kun boasts that his 3 chefs will let a gourmet like Yi Han understand what the essence of cuisine is. In turn, Yi Hyun also shows off his special royal head chef, and they will get to enjoy the authentic flavor of Korean cuisine. Ji Young's secret weapon for dessert is a dish made by boiling cow's milk and skimming the milk curd from the surface. The ambassadors must be tired after a long journey. If we want to make the atmosphere fun, there's nothing better than sweets. At the negotiating table, Yi Hyun gets angry when he learns that the Great Ming side wants 50 more tribute women, and twice the amount of ginseng. In addition to what was offered to Great Ming last time, the items returned from Great Ming remain the same. They are clearly trying to pressure them. The situation is very tense. In the kitchen, Ji Young is placing the pastries on a tray, while everyone is racking their brains, guessing what she is making. Finally, the dish is complete. The pastries have 5 colors, are very beautiful, and are served with a tray of tea. This is a macaron, a famous French dessert. But Ji Young has created a Korean-style macaron version, with black sesame, mugwort, jujube, gardenia, and rice flavors. The shell is made from black sesame, almonds, butter, egg whites, and sugar mixed together and beaten. In the middle is a sweet and salty cream filling, made by mixing butter, sugar, and black sesame seeds. The brittle pastry combined with the sweetness will help you relieve fatigue. Yu Kun just looks at it and puts it down, ordering the 3 chefs to try it first. The 3 eat a bite and immediately feel happy, euphoric, as if they're partying to the max on the dance floor. Seeing their reaction, Yi Hyun can't hide his pride in Ji Young. Yu Kun can't resist trying a bite, and also ends up on the dance floor. Then, Yi Hyun also joins the party and eats the sweets. Yu Kun has to admit that Ji Young's macaron is very exquisite. He proposes that Ji Young and the chefs from Great Ming compete to determine the amount of tribute. Just as Yi Hyun predicted, it seems his purpose is to use the competition as an excuse to force Korea to offer more tribute. Ji Young is not confident, because she knows that Chinese cuisine is extremely diverse. She signals to the king to refuse. To her surprise, he smiles and agrees. Seeing Ji Young gesturing frantically, he even proposes that the 3 people on their side compete with the 3 chefs on his side. So the 2 sides agreed to compete in 3 rounds. Yi Hyun and the chief envoy will be the judges, and in case of a tie, they will choose a respected person to taste the food and make the final decision. Later, Ji Young blames the king, but he says, "You're the one who signaled. You gestured with 3 fingers. Cooking is also a battlefield." Resolving battlefield conflicts by exchanging culture and cuisine is a very peaceful solution. Even so, Ji Young still feels that this responsibility is too heavy, no different from carrying the future of the kingdom on her shoulders. The tyrant both persuades and threatens. "Do this for me and for the people of Korea. As the royal head chef of Korea, you can't say you have no responsibility to the people. What if I lose? Of course, you will be charged with treason." But refusing to compete with the chefs from Great Ming is also considered treason. Despite Ji Young's protests, the tyrant doesn't change his mind. Win at any cost. The Dowager Queen is not happy to hear about the cooking competition. She believes that the king has made a big mistake. How can you bet the fate of the country on a royal chef? Even if Ji Young is talented, how can she be sure to win against the best chefs of Great Ming? She worries that there will be a disaster, so she writes a letter to the Emperor of Great Ming. Meanwhile, the Grand Army and Mokju are also tasting the macarons that Ji Young made. The Grand Army praises them profusely, while the other pretends to dislike them, saying they are too sweet. She demands that Ji Young be replaced by someone else to compete. But the Grand Army says, "If we lose this competition, it will be even more beneficial to us. The king will lose face terribly, and Yukun will have the right to exploit Korean ginseng. Then, they will have a reason to stage a coup to overthrow Yi Hyun," he confidently assures. No matter how hard His Highness tries, the royal chef can't win. In-jae, on behalf of the Grand Army, gives a bribe to Yukun. He exposes that the king of this country is not wise, often having seizures and even seeing things that don't exist. Every time that happens, he does strange things, affecting the court. Therefore, he wants the Great Ming to support a coup. To win over Yukun, In-jae also promises to guarantee that Great Ming will win the cooking competition. So Yukun can set more conditions, demanding double the amount of tribute women and ginseng, and demanding full rights to exploit ginseng in Korea. And if old Yukun doesn't agree, they will expose all the times he received bribes. As soon as In-jae leaves, Yukun tells the 3 chefs to be serious about the competition, and determined to defeat the Korean chef and make their king lose face. Suddenly, they realize that someone is eavesdropping. The 2 chefs immediately form a battle formation to protect Yukun, while the girl chases after him. The guy throws surgical knives like darts, and it turns out that the eavesdropper is the clown Gong Gil. After escaping from the pursuit, he goes to meet the king and report that In-jae secretly met with Yukun, and warns that the 3 chefs of Great Ming are not ordinary, but true martial arts masters. Meanwhile, Mokju is blaming Man-soo for not being able to put arsenic in the food offered to the king recently. Suk-won informs him that he will soon have to participate in a competition with the chefs of Great Ming. Man-soo thinks he has to try to win, but to his surprise, she orders Korea to lose this competition. In the kitchen, Ji Young and the royal chefs are removing the seeds from the chili peppers. She plans to dry them, grind them into powder, and make a special paste. This is Ji Young's secret weapon for the upcoming competition. Just then, Chun-sik conveys the message for Ji Young to meet the king. It turns out that Ji Young requested an exit permit to leave the royal palace. She must personally go to the mill to explain how to make the new seasoning for the competition. Hearing that, Yi Hyun demands to go with her, using the excuse that he is worried about the competition. But to go out, they have to disguise themselves. So Yi Hyun has a bunch of dresses and jewelry brought for Ji Young to try on. It turns out that Yi Hyun is not only picky about food, but also picky about fashion. No matter what Ji Young wears, he shakes his head, until the 5th outfit, which he finally approves of, looking at her without blinking as if he is captivated. Later, Yi Hyun also changes his clothes to disguise himself to go out with her. Ji Young is very excited to visit the bustling market, while Yi Hyun is just obsessed with watching her. Suddenly, Ji Young sees a jade pendant, similar to the one hanging on the cover of the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds, but she just looks at it and puts it down. When they arrive at the mill, the king says he has something to do for a while, but before leaving, he carefully slips her a bag of money. Sure enough, a moment later, the shop owner demands 5 coins, and Ji Young has to take more money from that bag to make it enough. Thinking that Yi Hyun has something important to do, it turns out that he went to buy things for her. He returns to the shop and buys the jade pendant, then buys a bunch of silk fabric, a pair of shoes, and a folding fan. It's just that his royal guard is struggling to carry all the things. Meanwhile, Yafei comes to scout the kitchen and sees the pile of chili peppers that Ji Young is drying. She then bites off a piece to taste. Later, she goes into the kitchen to visit, complaining that this place is too messy. The royal chefs cut green onions, using too bad of knife skills. Man-soo gets angry and challenges her to a green onion cutting contest to determine who is better. When the king returns to the original spot, Ji Young has disappeared. The royal guard volunteers to find her, while the king stays there in case she comes back. Soon after, Ji Young returns, beaming, making Yi Hyun look dazed. It turns out that she went to pick some flowers that she calls iris, while the king calls them. Just then, a carriage whizzes past, and Yi Hyun quickly catches Ji Young, the two looking at each other lovingly. Suddenly, she remembers the flowers that fell into the mud. He says that he will find her more beautiful flowers than that, but Ji Young still tries to pick them up and clean each one. It turns out that she picked these flowers to give to the king because they have a calming effect. She plans to bring them back to plant in the flower garden. Hearing that, Yi Hyun also sits down, not minding the dirt, and picks them up with her. Yi Hyun gets mud on his face, making Ji Young laugh. She's about to point it out to him, but he smudges another mark on her face. The two don't return to the palace until late at night. Before parting, the king slips the jade pendant into Ji Young's hand, while the royal guard leaves her with a pile of belongings. Back in his room, the tyrant puts the Dian Vi flowers in a vase and carefully waters them, looking at them again and again, then smiling to himself. And Ji Young, looking at the pile of gifts that the king bought for her, is even more determined not to lose the competition. When she arrives at the kitchen, she runs into the female chef from Great Ming. She says that today is her lucky day, leaving Ji Young confused. When she enters, she sees Gil Jiam crying loudly. It turns out that in the green onion cutting competition this afternoon, Yafik Siu displayed her knife skills like a Shaolin master, causing Mansu to panic and cut his hand. Then the other royal chefs also suffered a crushing defeat. Even Mansu, who is famous for being good with knives, had to admit defeat. So they are all feeling discouraged and have lost all their fighting spirit. Seeing that, Ji Young speaks up to encourage them. They dare to cause trouble in our kitchen. We have to make them pay for looking down on Korean chefs. Bong Sik stands up in response first, and then the others also regain their spirit. Let's fight. Let's go. At the same time, Yafik Siu is reporting on the results of her reconnaissance today. Although she couldn't figure out the level of the royal head chef, she discovered the special chili pepper that Ji Young plans to use as a seasoning. The day of the competition has arrived. King Yi Hyun and Chief Envoy Yu Kun write the exam questions on cards, sweet, meat, fish, then put them all together in one place to draw one by one. Neither wants to draw first, so they finally decide to draw together. For the first round, the two cards are meat and nothing, meaning that in the first round, they will have to cook a meat dish that has never been made before. The other side is the master Tong Bailong. The two cards this time are knowledge and change. Yu Kun proposes to redraw because it doesn't make sense, but Yi Hyun says, diplomacy is about learning and understanding each other's culture. So what if we cook each other's dishes? Meaning that in the second round, the chefs from Great Ming will cook Korean dishes, and the royal chefs of Korea will cook dishes from Great Ming. Yu Kun happily agrees right away. For the third turn, Yi Hyun invites the Grand Army to draw, while Yu Kun sends Kong Wen Lee. They draw two cards, soup and ginseng. This is too clear, no need to explain anymore. The Korean side is extremely worried, because the Great Ming's cuisine is too famous for its soups. After deciding on the three themes, Yu Kun proposes to increase the stakes. Yi Hyun only smiles and asks, how so? In addition to the fixed number, Yu Kun wants to add 100 tribute women and the right to exploit ginseng. The unreasonable conditions cause the Korean side to stir. Seeing Sung Jae nodding slightly, Yi Hyun also sets his side's conditions. If Korea wins, Great Ming will only receive half the amount of tribute and must allow Korea to purchase any amount of sugarcane and flour before harvesting. Yu Kun is angry, saying that this needs to be discussed with the emperor and the court, and he can't decide on his own. Then let's just follow the original conditions. At this time, In Jae signals, and Yu Kun then agrees to ask the Emperor of Great Ming to approve the conditions if their side loses. So the rules of the competition have been finalized. The chef representing each kingdom will compete for a total of 3 rounds, and each competition will last 2 hours. The time to choose dishes and prepare ingredients will be 3 days. At this time, Ji Young raises her hand to signal, and the king immediately changes it to 5 days. From now on, the competition will begin in 5 days. The chefs from both sides stand up to greet each other. Ji Young tells Yafik Siu that she has returned the knife that she forgot in the kitchen yesterday. Sure enough, when she returns to the guest house, she sees the knife stuck on the cutting board, but the blade has been completely ruined. Yafik gets angry, kicking the knife into the wall. Meanwhile, Ji Young is sharpening her knife, preparing to take on the ambassadors. I will let you taste the heat. On the wall is a drawing of a pressure cooker. What will Ji Young cook? To cook the soup in the third round, Ji Young decides to use a pressure cooker, something that hasn't been invented yet in this era. The dish she plans to make is ginseng, chicken soup cooked with black bone chicken. That is a soup where you stuff ginseng and herbs into a chicken, and stew it until it is tender. You don't know how to make soup? If you stuff the filling into the chicken, the filling will all fall apart when you stew the chicken. I know. That's why this soup must be cooked with the help of science. First, we must have a pressure cooker to stew the chicken. Then we will wash the black bone chicken with water filtered through loess soil to remove the fishy smell of the chicken. Finally, we will use red ginseng, at least 6 years old, and 9 other types of herbs to make the broth. Why do we need a pressure cooker? That's because wild black bone chicken meat is very tough, and the time for each round of the competition is only 1 can geo. To achieve the effect of stewing for 10 hours in just 1 hour, we must definitely use a pressure cooker. Where can we find that? Even the royal chefs have never seen or heard of it, but Ji Young is very confident that she will find someone who can make it. She comes from the future, after all. The whole kitchen enthusiastically discusses the dishes and strategies for each round of the competition. On the other side, the Great Ming team also chooses chicken as the ingredient. The next day, both sides start experimenting and practicing cooking the competition dishes. Not only preparing her own dish, Ji Young also directs and supports the 2 chefs. While she is discussing with her teammates, Yi Hyun is curiously eavesdropping. When she suspects something and comes out to check, he quickly runs away. But anyway, the next day, Ji Young reveals the plan to use a pressure cooker to the king and asks him to find someone to make this thing. Isn't there someone here who invented the hemispherical sundial and the water clock? To her surprise, the inventor that Ji Young was thinking of died long ago. Fortunately, Chang Sion remembers that he has a descendant named Chun Sang, who is famous for making strange things at the military arms depot. He caused an explosion and was dismissed from his position last year. Ji Young asks the king to help urgently, because she has to prepare for the first 2 rounds and also find fresh ingredients from the wild. The king is excited and plans to go with her, but Chang Sion stops him because the king has to receive the delegation. In the end, Yi Hyun has no choice but to let Song Jae accompany Ji Young, but as he watches the 2 leave together, Yi Hyun becomes jealous because they look too much like a married couple. Meanwhile, Song Jae reveals to Ji Young that Yi Hyun seems to be liking her more and more. You should take this opportunity to win his heart. You might even have to call you Ji Young royal concubine in the future. But Ji Young doesn't think about that. She's just focused on finding the book and returning to the future. Just then, Gong Gil appears and winks. The 2 turn their heads and see the king and his royal guard standing there. It turns out that Yi Hyun couldn't stand the jealousy, so he decided to follow and accompany Ji Young, using the excuse that he was worried about the future of the kingdom. As for Song Jae, he was sent back to protect the royal palace. Song Jae and Chang Sion decide to keep the king's departure from the palace a secret. Instead, he announces that His Highness is feeling unwell, so he will not hold court for the time being. The officials express their suspicion, but the 2, father and son, Song Jae, resolutely don't reveal anything more. Even so, the Grand Army's group has learned that the king has left the palace with the royal head chef. It is said that they went to find a strange object to use in the competition. Seizing this opportunity, the Grand Army decides to take action against Ji Young to ensure that the Korean side will lose the competition, and they will take advantage of that to stage a coup. After a long journey, Ji Young's group finally finds the home of the person they are looking for. Outside the door is a threatening sign. Anyone who opens the gate without permission will be sorry. Before Ji Young can stop him, Yi Hyun gets angry and charges straight in. As a result, he triggers a trap, causing a cannon to be ignited. In a dangerous situation, the royal guard shields the king with his body, while Yi Hyun hugs Ji Young and ducks down. Fortunately, the cannon doesn't fire a projectile, but only white snowflakes. Ji Young is flustered when she realizes that Yi Hyun is hugging her. At this time, Chun Sang excitedly runs out to look at the pile of white grains. After regaining her composure and realizing that it's not snowflakes but puffed rice, Ji Young knows she has found the right person. Yi Hyun intends to teach this insolent guy a lesson, but Ji Young quickly signals him to control his anger, and Chun Sang seems to have a grudge against people from the royal palace, so he curses at them a lot. Ji Young marvels at the cannon, saying that it's actually a rice puffing machine that uses heat and pressure. She introduces herself as the royal head chef and wants to ask him for a favor related to the future of the kingdom. To her surprise, Chun Sang refuses outright and chases them away. Yi Hyun gets mad and intends to use force, so Ji Young has to both beg the king to control his anger and plead with Chun Sang to help. To their surprise, he pulls out a crossbow to chase them away. The group frantically retreats, but only Ji Young tries to linger, saying she has a way to make the puffed rice taste better. Chun Saiying's attitude immediately changes 180 degrees. She then gives him a bag of sugar to put in the next batch of rice and turns to leave. Yi Hyun is still very angry at this insolent guy, wanting to torture him and make him make a pot for Ji Young. As they are arguing, an explosion rings out. Yi Hyun seizes the opportunity to hug Ji Young again, then acts embarrassed and flustered. Sure enough, the puffed rice tastes better when sugar is added. But Chun Saiying created this machine to double the rice output for the people. If they need sugar, what's the point? Ji Young says that's why he has to help her. If they win the competition, Korea can import more sugarcane at a cheaper price. At that time, everyone can eat their puffed rice. Now Chun Saiying asks her what she needs help with. Ji Young then takes out the drawing of the pressure cooker. He only lets her into the house and closes the door, leaving Yi Hyun outside feeling extremely anxious. Fortunately, the clown and the royal guard stop him, so he waits patiently. Ji Young explains, this pot will retain the steam when boiling water. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at standard pressure, but it boils at 120 degrees Celsius at double the pressure. Thanks to that, we can stew the meat until it's so soft that you can eat the bones. I need this pot to win against the chefs of Great Ming in the competition. To her surprise, Chun Saiying still refuses, because he doesn't want to be like his uncle, used and discarded by high-ranking officials. Seeing Ji Young leaving disappointed, the king again demands to torture Chun Saiying. If you don't do a good job, I'll chop off your hands and kill your entire family. I'm famous for being a tyrant. Of course, Ji Young can't let him do that, but in fact, she is completely at a loss for what to do next. In the royal palace, Mok Ju is furious to hear that the king left the palace with the royal chef. Maid Chu Wol also reports about Gong Gil. She has discovered that Gong Gil's sister was a court lady who died in this place, so he is probably trying to avenge his sister. At the same time, the Dowager Queen and the great ladies have also heard the news that the king has left the palace. They begin to speculate that the king has fallen in love with the royal head chef, but the Dowager Queen immediately dismisses it. In the kitchen, the royal chefs are still frantically preparing for the competition. From the ingredients to the preparation of the dishes, the group discovers that Man Su is teaching Gil Jium how to cut green onions. What's strange is that he's being overly strict, making her practice to the point where she cuts her hand several times. Could this guy be obsessed with cutting green onions after his crushing defeat against Yafeixiu? But why is he teaching Gil Jium? Meanwhile, Yafeixiu comes to give the Grand Army a bag of Sichuan peppercorns, not the regular kind, but the most delicious and rare peppercorns. She wants to use this to exchange for something. At this time, Ji Young's group is sitting bored, sheltering from the rain. The clown says that in this rainy weather, it would be great to have crispy fried green onion pancakes with rice wine. Hearing that, an idea flashes in Ji Young's mind. She asks everyone where Chun Saiying's hometown is. The clown says that his accent sounds like he's from Busan. That's right. So she drags Yi Hyun out into the rain to buy ingredients. Later, Ji Young starts making the green onion pancake, a Busan specialty. First, she mixes the flour, adds a little sugar, and stirs it well until the batter thickens. She arranges the green onions on the pan and fries them first, then pours the batter over them. Finally, she adds a layer of rich eggs. The fragrant smell makes everyone drool. The two guys are in charge of fanning the aroma towards Chun Saiying's house. Seeing that Ji Young is praising the two too much, Yi Hyun chases them away to take over the job of fanning the stove, trying hard to please Ji Young. But before long, he has to take a break. At this time, the fragrant smell has drifted into the house, causing Chun Saiying to curiously run out to see. Sure enough, he's drooling when he sees the green onion pancakes. Ji Young quickly calls him over and invites him to eat the pancake, but he still tries to resist the temptation. Yi Hyun then tells Ji Young to cut the cake and eat it to make him jealous. First, Yi Hyun munches. Then the other two eat the cake with satisfied expressions. Finally, Chun Saiying can't stand it anymore and steals a piece like a thief. But indeed, the cake that Ji Young made is so delicious that it reminds him of the flavors of his childhood. It turns out that Ji Young's father is also from Busan, so she is very familiar with the green onion pancake. She takes advantage of the time when he is eating to persuade him. I heard you say that your teacher was used and discarded, but just as you still remember the taste of your childhood, people will never forget him. Thanks to him, people can know the exact time, as well as observe and recognize the stars. Honestly, the reason I put so much effort into cooking is that I love cooking so much. Through this competition, I want to show the chefs of Great Ming the taste of Korean food. So can you help us by doing what you love? For everyone's sake, I'm asking you. Finally, Chun Saiying agrees, even thanking Ji Young for letting him eat the food of his childhood. Again, the taste of his hometown that he remembers for the rest of his life. The clown is assigned to stay and help Chun Saiying make the pot. The remaining three set off to find ingredients. Ji Young divides the equipment for each person to carry, but Yi Hyun pushes everything onto the royal guard. As Ji Young and the royal guard huff and puff digging the ground, the lazy Yi Han accidentally finds a wild ginseng root. To their surprise, he shoves it straight into his pocket. Everything on this land belongs to me. In-jae comes to meet Yukun, assuring him that Great Ming will win the competition. It is even possible that the competition will not take place. The royal head chef has left the palace to get an object for the competition, and many dangerous things can happen outside. The two laugh out loud, unaware that Tang Beilong has eavesdropped on everything. Tomorrow is the day the competition will begin, but Ji Young still hasn't returned to the palace, making the two royal chefs quite worried. The most pitiful is Kyung Gum, who is still being given a lot of work by Man Su late into the night, doing it while crying. Bong Sik wonders why Man Su is so harsh with the girl. Just then a masked man appears, scaring the two men so badly that they almost wet their pants. Fortunately, he doesn't kill them, but asks them to deliver a letter to the king. The royal head chef is in danger. Looking at his silver hair, the two guess that it is Tang Beilong of Great Ming. But how does he know how to speak Korean? And why is the letter blank? The two quickly find Chang Seon, tell him everything, and give him the letter. Chang Seon immediately gives it to Song Jae. When he holds it up to the fire, a message appears. Someone is targeting the royal head chef. Song Jae immediately leads his troops out in the night, his heart burning like fire. Early the next morning, Chun Sang and the clown have finished making the pressure cooker. Just as Ji Young's group is returning, no one knows that assassins have surrounded them outside. Ji Young is overjoyed when she sees that the pressure cooker is made perfectly. The king also happily rewards Chun Sang with money and prepares to return to the palace. At this moment, the assassins are approaching the house, touching Chun Sang's alarm wire. They're getting close. It's too late to run. Chun Sang takes out a pile of swords. Open the gate when I give the order. With that, he lights the fuse of the cannon, just as those guys kick on the alarm wire in front of the door. They immediately open the gate to greet them with bullets. Although they eliminate a group, there are still many assassins rushing into the house from all directions. The Royal Guard and Gong Gil desperately fight back, while Yi Hyun also picks up a sword to protect Ji Young. As he is struggling with the enemy, Ji Young falls to the ground, and the pot flies out, rolling into the battlefield. Chun Sang urges Ji Young to run first. He will use his secret weapon to destroy the enemy, and then bring the lid to her. Ji Young has no choice but to escape with Yi Hyun. Then, the Royal Guard and the clown also retreat. The assassins don't want to risk their lives with Chun Sang, so they chase after Ji Young. Luckily, the lid seems to still be usable. As the four are running away, the Royal Guard volunteers to stay behind, to stop the enemy, so that the other three can escape. He bravely faces 5 enemies, but human strength is limited. He is hit repeatedly and falls, about to be finished off. It's Gong Gil's turn to volunteer to stay behind and stop the enemy so that the king and Ji Young can escape. But there are still many assassins chasing after the two. While Yi Hyun desperately fights back, Ji Young falls and puts her hand on the ground again. It turns out that Yi Hyun is a top martial arts master, not just anyone. He continuously eliminates the enemy, but is also hit in the shoulder, making Ji Young very worried. At this time, Song Jae arrives in time and shoots down one of them. Yi Hyun takes the opportunity to strike down 3 more. He asks who sent them. To their surprise, seeing that there is no escape, the assassin immediately takes his own life. Ji Young is so shocked that she faints. Fortunately, Song Jae checks her pulse and says she's fine. After Yi Hyun finishes bandaging Ji Young's hand, the Royal Guard and the clown arrive. It turns out that after the clown finished eliminating the enemy, he ran to reinforce the Royal Guard. The Royal Guard believes that these assassins are trained soldiers, with good coordination, and commit suicide when captured. They must be soldiers of those who intend to rebel. At this time, Ji Young starts awake. Her first thought is to worry about the pressure cooker. Then she breathes a sigh of relief when she sees that everyone is safe. Even though her hand is injured, she is anxious to return to the palace in time for the competition. The Grand Army is furious to hear that the assassins have failed, but still, he is confident that the competition will not go according to the king's wishes. The competition is about to begin, but the king and Ji Young have not yet arrived, making the Korean side anxious. At this time, they are flying back to the palace on horseback. As for the task of holding Ji Young, Yi Hyun can't let anyone else do it, but she is not used to riding a horse, so she gets motion sick and nauseous. The king thinks that she will blame him for making her uncomfortable, but in fact, Ji Young just wants to thank him for saving her life. He was really cool at that time, and the king secretly apologizes to Ji Young for making her suffer. Meanwhile, Yukun is smug, complaining that Korea doesn't know etiquette, and suspects that the king and Ji Young ran away because they were afraid of the competition. Now is the time. The competition will begin. Bong Sik is forced to step up. To everyone's surprise, Tang Beilong refuses to compete because he wants to wait for the king and Ji Young. wanting to show the generosity of a great nation. Even though he is not happy, Yu Kun has no choice but to accept and postpone the competition. Time passes very quickly, and it is now the time. But Ji Young still hasn't appeared. The Grand Army's faction is gleeful, while the royal chefs are worried. Only the master Tang Beilong heard that they had arrived. Indeed, Ji Young's group has just returned to the palace. Although tired, she is still full of fighting spirit. So, the big cooking competition is officially on. Round 1 is all about creating a never-before-seen meat dish. Team Korea is going with spicy braised beef ribs, while Team Great Ming is whipping up diced chicken and mashed squash on top to create a sweet and light taste, plus a decorative flower and some fresh herbs to complete the dish. Finally, time is up. Both teams have to stop. The two beautiful dishes are offered to the judges and officials to taste. Yi Hyun and Yu Kun will score each other's dishes on a scale of 10. First up is Team Korea's dish. Judging by the blissful expressions of the picky judges, you know it's got to be good. Both are transported to a lush green garden with countless delicious fruits. The meat melts in their mouths as soon as it touches their tongues. I've never eaten anything this tender. The meat not only melts, but also has a sweet and fragrant fruity taste. The rich flavor of the wild grape wine still lingers in my mouth, but I don't smell any alcohol during the braising process, plus the flambe method to eliminate the smell of alcohol. Yi Hyun is super happy with the dish, but Yu Kun says that this is just braised ribs and can't be considered a dish that has never been seen before. Ji Young quickly jumps in. This dish doesn't belong to this era. It's a family dish that will appear in the countryside of France a few hundred years from now. French mothers. I always imagine what it would taste like if my late mother had cooked it for me. So, this dish doesn't exist in this era, and for me, it doesn't exist anywhere. Next up is the dish from Great Ming. This dish is cooked with chicken and beans, so Yafexiu named it chicken and beans, served with Kufu Ming wine. Ji Young is shocked by this dish. It should have been in the Qing dynasty. How can Sichuan Kung Pao chicken be here? This chicken has a pleasantly spicy taste, but it's still sweet, and it has the richness of beans. The meat is really moist. How can that be? Yafexiu explains that she cooks the chicken just right, so as not to lose the moisture, and adds peanuts to create the richness. How did you get this spicy taste? I put a secret sauce in the chicken to create the spicy taste. That is supposed to be their secret seasoning. Seeing the tension, Yu Kun demands to announce the scores first to seal the deal. But Yi Hyun refuses to budge. Tang Beilong continues to ask Yafexiu a few questions, guessing that she stole the opponent's ingredients. He cannot accept such a cunning act, so he admits that the Great Ming lost this round. Yu Kun is furious at this overly honest man. Yi Hyun then reminds that no matter how talented a chef is, the first thing they should know is etiquette. Just when everything seems to be settled, Yafexiu refuses to admit defeat, wanting to prove that she obtained the red powder legitimately. She reveals that she exchanged gochu from the botanical garden, and the person who gave it to her was none other than the manager of the botanical garden, the Grand Army. Faced with questioning from Yi Hyun, the Grand Army laughs and says evasively that, "I didn't allow the kitchen to use that chili pepper because I was worried about the health of the royal family. I was planning to throw them away, but just then, Yafexiu came and requested to exchange them for valuable Great Ming peppercorns. I thought this was a beneficial exchange for us, so I allowed her to take as much as she wanted. Royal head chef, if you had told me in advance, I wouldn't have thrown them away." Everyone was furious but couldn't do anything. Yu Kun demanded to announce the scores be announced, because Yafexiu had traded for the peppers, not stolen them. He said directly to Yafexiu, "You are not worthy of being a master chef. If you still have the self-respect of a chef, then admit defeat." Witnessing the integrity of Tang Beilong, Ji Young spoke up, admitting that she was also partly at fault for not keeping the precious ingredients safe, so he didn't need to force Yafexiu to admit defeat anymore. Even so, Tang Beilong insisted that the Great Ming had lost. After a round of arguing, Yi Hyun decided to cancel the results of this round, considering the two teams a tie. Yu Kun refused, believing that the Great Ming had to win. Finally, the two sides agreed to a tie, with a condition that was beneficial to Great Ming. If all 3 rounds were a tie, then Great Ming would be the winner. Ji Young was furious, because that condition was no different from her having lost this round. Just as she was about to leave, Tang Beilong unexpectedly stopped her. It turned out that Yafexiu now wanted to apologize to Ji Young for playing dirty. Ji Young smirked, saying that she also learned a lesson about keeping ingredients safe. She declared that she would definitely win tomorrow. Tang Beilong had a confident expression on his face, but when she returned to the kitchen, she was worried about what to do tomorrow. Everyone was discouraged by today's results, and they no longer had chili peppers as a secret weapon. Even so, Ji Young had to lift her spirits to prepare for tomorrow's competition, because she no longer had gochu peppers. Instead of making spicy duck, she decided to make Peking duck, that iconic dish that is said to have eased tensions in diplomatic negotiations between the US and China in the 1970s. This was a royal dish that the Ming Dynasty loved for many years. It's important to blow air into it to separate the skin from the meat, and it's really not easy to make the skin so crispy. While Ji Young is instructing the team on how to make it, on the other side, the chefs of Great Ming have realized that Ji Young is a true master, much better than they thought. But Tang Beilong is still very confident in tomorrow's dish. That night, the king summoned the grand army. Banging on the table, Man Su remembers Mok Ju's threat, so he intentionally cuts his hand so that he can't continue working. There is not much time left, so Ji Young has to cut the meat herself, even though her hand still hurts. Seeing her struggling, Yu Kun smugly taunts that the Korean chef doesn't know how to use a knife. Because Ji Young's hand hurts, she can't do it well. When Bong Sik jumps in, he messes things up. At this time, Gil Jiam volunteers to try. Ji Young glances at Man Su and nods in agreement. Previously, Ji Young had instructed everyone on how to cut the duck. In addition to Man Su, who is famous for being good with knives, Gil Jiam is surprisingly the second best. One day, Man Su secretly handed over the task of cutting the duck skin in the competition to Gil Jiam, and every day he tutored the girl bit by bit. The whole team is overjoyed. Ji Young nods to signal Man Su. Falling into Chu Wol's eyes, it turns out that the day before Ji Young saw that Gil Jiam's hand was injured, she had asked Man Su. He confessed that he had to let the Korean team lose, but he couldn't say who was threatening him. Even so, Ji Young guessed that it was Mok Ju. Now it's time for the plating. Spread on the flattened and cleaned duck skin is a layer of sticky rice, topped with thinly sliced cucumbers and green onions to create a refreshing taste. Rolled the duck skin up, cut into bite-sized pieces, and scooped up taro to add decoration. Finally, it is served with macchiato sauce. The Peking duck dish is complete. On the other side, they are also presenting their dish. On the lotus leaf is mixed rice with ginkgo nuts and squash. The lotus leaf is wrapped to retain the aroma, creating a dish of rice steamed in the golden lotus leaf. So the two judges feel like they have been transported to a pure and fresh lotus pond. Yi Hyun is very impressed. The scent is light but delicate. Just eating one bite makes me feel like I am surrounded by lotus flowers. And Yu Kun imagines that he has become a Buddha. The flavor is rich and pure. It's so light, yet so attractive. Is this really the flavor of Korea? Yi Hyun asks Tang Beilong how he created the 5 colors in the stewed lotus root. Many types of Korean vegetables are wrapped and cooked in the golden lotus leaf. As for the 5 colors, red is omija berries, symbolizing benevolence. Blue is mulberry leaves, symbolizing propriety. Yellow is gardenia, symbolizing integrity. Black is soy sauce, symbolizing profundity. And finally, the straight white color is the natural color of lotus root soaked in vinegar. Yu Kun wonders, when did he learn to cook Korean temple food? Tang Beilong says he used to wander around in all directions to find the ultimate flavor. However, he couldn't find such a flavor and became tormented and troubled. One stormy night 10 years ago, fortunately, he was saved by the abbot. When he woke up, he tasted the best soup he had ever known. Although the abbot didn't want to reveal the recipe to a foreigner, Tang Beilong kowtowed to beg to learn. This dish is a collection of all the dishes, and what is this sweet aftertaste? It's not just sugar, there must be something more. Yu Kun has to exclaim, this isn't the Peking duck I've eaten in Great Ming. It has a completely new taste. Even more surprising, the duck has no smell of poultry or earth. The skin is crispy on the outside. The meat is moist on the inside, and combined with finely chopped green onions and cucumbers, it creates a perfect harmony. Yi Hyun comments, which goes well with the unique and light taste of the Peking duck, making me feel like all 3 flavors are flooding my mouth at the same time. The 2 judges take turns exclaiming, this dish is the best in the world. Ji Young explains, the sweetness that soaks into the duck skin is thanks to the squash. I cooked the squash in water, and then poured it over the duck, so they have guarded it carefully. Everyone is nervously holding their breath, waiting for the moment the scores are announced. Finally, the scores are announced, leaving everyone stunned and speechless. The Great Ming gets 8 points, while Korea only gets 1 point. Yi Hyun praises Tang Beilong for making a dish with an unparalleled flavor. Truly admirable. But the scores for this second round don't count, just because they wanted Great Ming to win. The Korean dish was given an absurdly low score. The thick-skinned Yu Kun still argues that he is only following the rules, as each side is supposed to score the other's dish. But Yi Hyun says directly that what you did not only insults the honor of the Korean royal chef, but also insults the honor of the Great Ming chef. Because this scoring method is too unfair, Yi Hyun proposes that the chefs of the 2 countries will taste and score their own dishes. People don't see their own shortcomings. Think about that when scoring the dish. and that score will determine who wins this second round. This solution is indeed strange. So, the 3 chefs from Great Ming taste the lotus leaf rice, and Ji Young's group tastes the Peking duck. The first person to score is Ji Young. To everyone's surprise, she says that she cannot score her own dish. I cannot say that the Peking duck we made is perfect, but the entire team poured their sweat, effort, enthusiasm, and sincerity into this dish. So, how dare we evaluate it ourselves? The next person is Tang Beilong. He also says that he cannot score the dish that he learned and summarized from many Korean monks. In the end, Yi Hyun concludes that the 2 dishes in this round are evenly matched, meaning that this round is a tie. Yu-kun secretly calculates that if all 3 rounds are a tie, then his side will win. So he agrees with the tie result for this round. So tomorrow's round will be the deciding round. Tang Beilong believes that he lost but won. He recognized his shortcomings. That is, he focused too much on the depth and meaning of the dish, and couldn't captivate the taste buds of the eaters immediately. And Ji Young replies that she won but lost. She focused too much on captivating the taste buds, and forgot to make the dish deep in meaning. Both feel admiration for each other, looking forward to competing fairly with each other tomorrow. When her teammates wonder, Ji Young explains that Tang Beilong's dish touched the heart, while we touched the taste buds. If we had scored fairly today, we would have won, but his dish will be the one that people remember forever. So they were just praising each other all along? We recognize each other and also praise ourselves. It's not just me, but he recognizes us. At this time, Chang Seon comes to call Ji Young to meet the king. Ji Young urges him to say what he wants quickly, so that she can prepare for tomorrow. To her surprise, Yi Hyun personally pours her tea. This is tangerine leaf tea, which has a calming effect, feeling like a warm comfort. Yi Hyun worries that her hand is injured, and she can't compete tomorrow. But she says she can still cook, just can't do the meticulous things. While talking about this, she questions why he proposed that each side score their own dishes. How can you determine the winner that way? Yi Hyun confesses that he didn't know the competition would be so difficult. This is my fault. It's risky to bet the future of the kingdom on a cooking competition, but it's not too late. We can cancel round 3. I just need to bow my head and apologize to the chief envoy. But Ji Young says that she wants to compete in round 3. Seeing the Korean royal chefs working so hard and earnestly, and seeing the sincerity of the Great Ming chefs when competing, I want to do my best to win. Ji Young intends to pick up her teacup, but slips and spills the tea on her injured hand. Even though she says she's fine, Yi Hyun is so worried that he immediately sends for the royal physician to examine her wound. He holds her hand tightly, not letting go. Promise me not to hurt yourself anymore. If you hurt, it hurts me even more. That night, the royal palace is extremely lively. Mok-ju is furious, because Ji Young still hasn't lost any rounds. Song Jae came and confiscated all the peppers from the Grand Army's storage. Yu-kun got angry with the Tang Beilong gang for not winning any matches. Meanwhile, Ji Young's hand was much better after being treated by the royal physician. Right after that, she and the team prepared for tomorrow's dish. Among the ingredients that were brought, there was also a precious wild ginseng root. It must be the ginseng root that Yi Hyun got earlier. The next day, the final round of the competition began. The theme of this round was ginseng soup. The chefs had to cook a soup with ginseng. Great Ming would cook Buddha jumps over the wall, while Korea would make ginseng chicken soup cooked with the traditional measurement tool and, of course, the pressure cooker. The royal chefs worriedly asked what they should do if the pressure cooker didn't arrive in time. Ji Young revealed that she had plan B, which was to use a cast iron pot, although it would be more difficult that way. The whole team quickly started working. Bong Sik was in charge of skinning the black-boned chicken. Man Su prepared green onions and garlic for the broth. Ji Young prepared the ginseng and various herbs. Everyone was very busy. On the other side, the Great Ming also took out a series of extravagant ingredients. Venison tendons are used to cook tonic dishes, monkey head mushrooms, sea cucumber, a delicacy that is considered the ginseng of the sea, even made Yi Hyun marvel. The Korean team started cooking the broth in a cast iron pot. Meanwhile, Yu-kun was showing off his team's amazing ingredients. In addition to the 3 dishes from earlier, there were also abalone, bamboo shoots, dried scallops, especially batch sam white ginseng, an ingredient that was said to require sacrifices to obtain. This was a dish in which precious ingredients were carefully cooked together for a long time. It was said that its rich aroma made even monks stop meditating to jump over the wall to taste it. That's why it was called Buddha jumps over the wall. Just hearing the name was already intimidating. At this time, Ji Young's team began preparing the ingredients to stuff the chicken, but after stuffing it, 1/4 of the time had passed. Although anxious, Ji Young still decided to wait for the pressure cooker to arrive. Her heart was burning with anxiety. Chun saying, "Where are you?" Half the time had passed, but there was still no sign of Chun Sang. Everyone urged her to switch to plan B. They had to at least complete the dish. With no other choice, Ji Young had to switch to using a cast iron pot to simmer the black bone chicken. Suddenly, there was a scream outside, and a strange bird was flying towards them. Everyone took a defensive stance. It turned out that Chun Sang was flying a homemade plane, landing in the middle of the royal palace, and was immediately surrounded by the royal guards. Fortunately, the royal guard arrived in time to bring him inside. Ji Young was overjoyed when she saw Chun Sang walk in, and he immediately took out the lid and handed it to her. Yi Hyun also happily boasted that he brought the kitchen tool that he had ordered to be made. Chun Sang warned that the lid was a bit weak because it was damaged. She should cook at the lowest possible temperature to ensure safety. But Ji Young needed the temperature to be at its maximum. Well, they had to do it. If they lost, it would be even more dangerous. So, the whole team put the black bone chicken into the pot and put on the lid, adding even more firewood to cook on high heat. To create the perfect flavor, Ji Young would increase the temperature inside the pot to 120°C at double the pressure. They just put as much firewood as they could. They could only pray that the pot didn't break. 30 minutes later, the pressure cooker was boiling, making Ji Young very happy. Everyone marveled in amazement. Yu Kun was worried that it was about to explode. Ji Young opened the valve, causing the steam to hiss out very strongly. Before long, the black bone chicken was stewed to perfection. While the team on the other side couldn't believe their eyes, how could they be done so soon? This was the power of science, much faster, and the taste was better too. Now was the last step. This was a new form of ginseng chicken soup, where you could eat the nutritious black bone chicken from skin to meat. The wontons were chicken skin, wrapped sticky rice that was blanched briefly in the broth. The minced meat was stuffed into morel mushrooms on a layer of seasoned black bone chicken, which made the wontons, mushrooms, and ginseng. The broth cooked from wild ginsengs was poured around to complete it. Crispy and rich scorched rice was the final highlight. On the other side, after simmering, they also reached the final step. The wine was poured into a plate covered with salt. On top was a decorative pattern of a dragon, symbolizing power. Then, the salt was burned to heat the bowl. Both teams finished just before the time limit and were very confident about their dishes. Yi Hyun decided to taste the Korean dish first. Ji Young explained that they lightly tap to break the scorched rice, then eat it with the wontons, meat, and broth. This dish is called ginseng chicken, cooked with black bone chicken and wild ginseng. The black bone chicken is stuffed with premium wild ginseng and then cooked in a pressure cooker with herbal broth, which helps to enhance the texture of the meat and create a rich flavor for the broth. I also added a unique flavor to the dish: scorched rice and morel mushrooms, stuffed with minced black boned chicken. Yu Kun criticized that it smelled like herbal chicken soup, but the shape resembled wontons, which didn't look delicate. Yi Hyun then made up that this was a nutritious dish favored by Western royalty. You must not be familiar with Western cuisine then. Yu Kun was stunned, but also didn't want to admit that he was ignorant. I know this dish too. Tasting a piece of the black bone chicken, both felt like they were seeing a phoenix flying in front of their eyes. The black bone chicken meat was incredibly tender. Every time they tasted the broth, the fragrance of wild ginseng and green onions spread delicately. It felt like their hearts were being soothed and warmed. The meat melted right in their mouths, and the broth was both rich and creamy. They felt warmth and vitality flooding their bodies, which was certainly due to the effect of the ginseng, and the flavor was completely new. This was truly an excellent dish. Even Yu Kun had to nod in approval. Next was the dish from the Great Ming. Wen Li stepped forward to introduce the Buddha jumps over the wall dish. The best ingredients from land and sea were used to cook the soup. Each spoonful would have a different taste, because the ingredients would become fragrant when eaten. Tasting a spoonful, the two judges felt like they were ascending to the heavens. It was truly worthy of the name, a dish for the immortals. This was an unparalleled flavor. Both slurped up the entire bowl. This situation was tense for Ji Young. To ensure fairness, Yi Hyun announced that the chefs would taste each other's dishes and give scores. Each chef could give a maximum of 10 points, meaning that the highest possible score was 30. To everyone's surprise, Yu Kun agreed right away, nodding confidently to his three chefs. Both teams carefully tasted each other's soup. Ji Young marveled that this dish was no joke. If she didn't have the pressure cooker, she would have lost for sure. Man Su commented that they used many precious ingredients, but the taste wasn't really impressive. But on the other side, Wen Li just smelled it and didn't eat any. It was rumored that this weirdo cooked without tasting. Ji Young suspected that he had an eating disorder. She had encountered cases like that before. When their cooking skills reached a certain level, they couldn't eat anything. Yu Kun also confirmed the story of Wen Li's eating disorder. So, how will he score the dish? I don't know. Just relying on luck. I told the emperor to let them score it for fairness. Yi Hyun was so angry that he was about to explode, but couldn't do anything. At this time, Ji Young guessed that Wen Li couldn't eat beautiful dishes, so she took her soup, mixed everything up in a bowl, and handed it to Wen Li. Honestly, mixing everything up like this tastes even better. Whatever the result, I brought this dish with the hope that you would be happy when eating it. Wen Li hesitated for a long time before picking up a chicken leg, biting into it, then slurping a spoonful of soup. Tears streamed down his face, and then he laughed heartily. This was the taste that I had been longing for so many years. It turns out that this soup reminded him of the soup that his mother cooked in the past. That dish was cooked by mixing all sorts of ingredients together. For many years I tried to cook a dish that tasted better, but none of them tasted like this. I achieved the cooking technique of not needing to taste it, but the more I cooked, the more I lost my appetite. I cannot say that I am the best chef, because I can't surpass my mother's cooking. Saying that, he slurped up the entire bowl of black-boned chicken soup. Ji Young explained that benevolence is said to be the most important virtue of intelligent people, knowing how to care for and think about others. I made this dish because I was thinking of you, Chef Wen Li. The dish that your mother cooked for you was probably also made with such sincerity. Now I understand. Chefs can bring joy to themselves and others. They are the ones who are truly intelligent. I have lost to you. Yu Kun was furious to hear that, but couldn't do anything. Finally, it was time to announce the scores. The Korean royal chefs scored the Great Ming dish 27 points, and the score for the Korean team was 28, meaning a narrow victory. Ji Young thanked the other team for giving them generous points, and Tang Balong said he hoped to compete one-on-one with her someday. Both humbly admitted that they had learned a lot from each other, so the final victory belonged to Korea. Surprisingly, Yu Kun happily accepted, agreeing to return to Great Ming with only one tribute item to show his gratitude. That was Ji Young. He wanted to offer her as a tribute woman to the emperor. Seeing Yi Heon getting angry, Yu Kun laughed gleefully. To their surprise, Yi Heon also laughed loudly. Then both grabbed each other tightly, laughing like two drunks. But then the smile suddenly disappeared. Yi Heon gave him a headbutt. Everyone was stunned and horrified by this strange diplomacy. The soldiers of the two sides rushed out, drawing their swords and glaring at each other. The Grand Army Jizan, however, smiled smugly as if his plan had succeeded. Yu Kun boiled with anger, determined to take Ji Young back to his country. He then ordered his entourage to arrest her, but the Korean royal guards were not dummies. Yi Heon taunted him that he should bring an army of at least 10,000 soldiers to make it worth his while. While the situation was as tense as a drawn bowstring, the Dowager Queen appeared with an aura of power, causing everyone to stop. Yi Heon explained that he was seeing off the Great Ming ambassador, and there was a misunderstanding. She warned him not to act recklessly, then turned to question Yu Kun. Why did you propose this outrageous competition? To her surprise, he repeated her words, causing her to also become angry. While he was still arrogantly demanding that Korea be punished, she took out a letter from a concubine of the late Emperor of Great Ming, who was also her aunt. It turned out that the Emperor of Great Ming had not requested the right to exploit ginseng and receive tribute women from Korea. All of this was made up by this greedy chief envoy. At this time, he and the entire Great Ming side kneeled to beg for mercy. He vowed to abide by his agreement with Yi Heon, bringing all the items as promised, and then hastily withdrew his army with his tail between his legs. The Dowager Queen continued to scold Yi Heon for being too reckless, and that this kingdom was not his alone. Then, she asked him to let the Jinmyong army of Yi Han taste Ji Young's food. Before leaving, she stopped and gave Ji Young a penetrating stare for a few seconds before leaving. That night, Mok Ju discussed with the Grand Army Jizan the plan to poison the king and the Jinmyong army tomorrow. When Ji Young makes butter-roasted black-boned chicken with ginseng for the two men, poison can leave traces, but this is not ordinary poison. The Grand Army expressed his emotion, because Mok Ju was always loyal to him, and promised to take her as his wife when the time was right. At the same time, Yi Heon also ordered the royal guard to investigate those who had recently deserted, from which he would track down those who were plotting to rebel. Meanwhile, Ji Young was very happy that she had won today's competition, and also helped Korea not lose ginseng to the Great Ming. She suddenly realized that she had become like a true Korean, beginning to feel familiar with everything here. From this room, the royal chefs in the kitchen, and even Yi Heon. At this time, Yi Heon was taking the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds and carefully writing down the dish that Ji Young made today, smiling to himself as he remembered her. The next morning, Yi Heon called Ji Young again to ask about her health. Because she was familiar with Yi Heon, Ji Young also joked comfortably, saying that the royal physician said, "I don't have much longer to live," startling Yi Heon. Later, she suggested that he cook a dish for her to eat. When she was about to leave, he held her back to give her a gift. It was a new royal chef's uniform. Ji Young really liked this gift, but the smile on her face suddenly disappeared when she thought about leaving this place to return to the future. Yi Hyun made plans to meet Ji Young after lunch. To her surprise, she said she had a prior appointment, but it turned out that the chefs from Great Ming had asked to meet. She wanted to give them gifts and say goodbye for the last time. Yi Hyun sulked, saying that she should go meet them quickly and then come see him. Ji Young immediately put on her new royal chef uniform and started preparing the meal. When it was time to eat, she offered up 2 dishes as promised. This was roasted whole black-boned chicken, stuffing the chicken with sticky rice, red dates, chestnuts, and astragalus, and then roasting it in a hanging oven, like when making Peking duck. This dish was made from crushed mustard seeds, salt, vinegar, and honey. This was a Korean-style mustard sauce, taking a piece of chicken and dipping it in here. Yi Hyun and his younger brother grabbed a chicken leg and took a bite, immediately feeling blissful. The skin was chewy, the meat was moist, and it was very flavorful. Ji Young felt relieved when she saw the king being gentle with his younger brother. If your highness is the person I think you are, then the purge will not take place. Have I changed the course of history? Immediately afterwards, Ji Young and the royal chefs went to say goodbye to the Great Ming chefs. She gave them a box of ginseng, hoping that they could use it to create new dishes. This time, the 3 chefs from Great Ming did not return to their country with Yu Kun, because he allowed them to go their separate ways to learn and teach cooking techniques. Before leaving, Tang Beilong asked Ji Young to pass on a message to the king. The outer edge of everything is always more difficult to see, and when going to sleep, remember to lock the latch carefully. While wondering what he meant, she met the great lady. She didn't say anything but gave her a slap across the face. It turned out that her son, the great army Jin Myung, was in a life or death situation. After eating the chicken that Ji Young cooked, without letting her explain a word, she ordered people to drag her away for interrogation. At this time, Mok Ju was delighted to hear the news that Ji Young had been captured by the great lady. I wish I could see the royal head chef's face when she is being interrogated. Meanwhile, Ji Young was tied tightly to a chair. The great lady still didn't listen to her explanation, ordering her to be tortured until she confessed the truth. In this burning situation, Yi Hyun was still innocently waiting for Ji Young in the secret garden, planning to return the bags of gochu pepper to surprise her. After brutal torture, Ji Young was thrown into prison. The royal chefs were trembling, not daring to do anything, even though they knew for sure that Ji Young was being framed. Only Giljum decided to risk her life to report the news to the king. Seeing that, Mansu stepped forward to take responsibility. Then Bongsik and the others bravely stood up as well. But before they could set off, Chang Sion appeared. At this time, the tyrant was eagerly waiting for Ji Young in the secret garden. Imagining how happy she would be when she saw the bags of chili powder, he imagined the scene where she would fall into his arms, like last time, and then practiced getting into position carefully. Just then, Chang Sion runs over in a panic to report that Ji Young has been tortured and imprisoned. Hearing that, Yi Hyun angrily led his group to the prison. Immediately seeing Ji Young sleeping slumped over inside, to their surprise, the guard didn't open the door on his orders, because the great lady had taken the key. Yi Hyun angrily ordered the royal guards to break down the door. But before they could take action, Ja Hyun appeared. She insisted that her son had been poisoned, and was in critical condition after eating Ji Young's dish. She even suspected that Yi Hyun was the one who ordered Ji Young to eliminate his younger brother, who had the potential to compete for the throne. Yi Hyun went berserk, drawing his sword and holding it to the great lady's neck, ordering her to hand over the key. To his surprise, this woman would rather die than obey. Yi Hyun got angry and was about to kill her on the spot, when Ji Young suddenly spoke up to stop him. "Please calm down. Please put down your sword and find a way to clear my name. I'm very afraid that Yi Hyun will take action and really become the tyrant in the history books. Your Highness, I know what this is about. If you swing your sword now, things will spiral out of control. You must control yourself. You must be steadfast." Hearing her earnest pleas, Yi Hyun finally restrained his anger and dropped his sword. He declared that he would personally investigate this matter thoroughly, and warned her not to torture Ji Young anymore. But she said, "If something happens to my son, I will definitely make Ji Young pay the price." Yi Hyun then challenged, "If you want to punish her, you must overthrow me first." After the great lady left, Yi Hyun hurried to comfort Ji Young, promising to clear her name soon and get her out of prison. Meanwhile, Min Sung reported to the Dowager Queen that the king was secretly investigating the death of his mother. If the king found the draft of the Shu Lu and learned that they were involved in his mother's death, their entire family would be in great danger. It turned out that Min Sung and the Dowager Queen were both members of the Han family, and they were the ones who put Yi Hyun on the throne. He suspected that Yi Hyun had harmed his younger brother Jin Myung, but the Dowager Queen immediately dismissed that, because she knew that Yi Hyun would do whatever he wanted to do openly, upright, and without using dirty tricks. Moreover, since the royal head chef appeared, Yi Hyun had become a different person. At the same time, the Grand Army Jizan and his gang were also gleeful, because their plan had succeeded, pushing the Dowager Queen and her Han family into a confrontation with the king. If Yi Heon fell into the trap and eliminated the Han family who had supported him, it would be an excuse for them to overthrow the tyrant. Meanwhile, Yi Heon orders Song Jae to investigate what Jin Myung ate after having a meal with him, and where he went, who he met. He needs all the information to clear Ji Young's name. From that moment on, Yi Heon stays up all night researching medical documents and poisons, hoping to find a clue. The atmosphere in the royal kitchen at this time is extremely bleak. When Song Jae comes to investigate, everyone insists that they tried the ginseng chicken dish that day, but no one had any problems. All the ingredients for cooking were taken away for the royal physician to investigate, and the result was that nothing unusual was found. Yi Heon wasn't surprised at all, because clearly, he also ate that dish and was still fine. According to the royal physician, the symptoms of the Grand Army Jin Myung are poisoning, so Song Jae believes that his illness may have been caused by something else, and Yi Heon should go to the Great Lady to investigate. The Grand Army's condition has not improved, and the royal physician has not found a direction to treat him. At this time, Yi Heon arrives, announcing that the royal physician has checked all the food that day and found nothing unusual. However, Ja Hyun is still not entirely convinced. Yi Heon takes a look around and sees a bunch of medicine of some sort. The royal physician explains that those are herbs to nourish the Grand Army, and the person who supplied the herbs was the Grand Army Jizan. To investigate, Yi Heon then has someone take the medicine back to personally examine. The Great Lady still blames Ji Young, forcing Yi Heon to warn her in a stern voice. Even so, the Great Lady is not afraid of the king. She vows that if her son dies, the king and Ji Young will have to pay the price. At this time, Chief Lady Kim comes to convey the Dowager Queen's order, requesting Ja Hyun to hand over the key to the prison. It turns out that she is not afraid of the king, but she is afraid of the Dowager Queen. Yi Heon is worried. If there is nothing wrong with the herbs either, what will he do? Every time he thinks of Ji Young suffering in the cold prison, his heart aches. To his surprise, Chang Seon reports that Ji Young is still strong and resilient in prison, saying that it is a place where she used to live. Seeing Yi Heon looking blank, Chang Seon gently reminds him that when she first entered the palace, he was the one who had her locked up in a special prison. Ah, why bring up the old stories? Ji Young regrets her fate in prison, only wishing she could go home to her dad now. To her surprise, the Dowager Queen appears, asking if she really wanted to kill the Grand Army, or if His Highness ordered her to do so. Ji Young says directly that she knows what the king is like. If he wanted to, he would do it himself. She warns that because of her, the king is being suspected, and all kinds of malicious rumors are spreading in the palace, that the king's reason has been clouded because of his closeness with the royal chef. If she can't clear her name, not only will she die miserably, but the king will also be in danger. She agrees to release her and give her 3 days to find evidence proving her innocence. Otherwise, after 3 days, she must end her life with this silver dagger. The royal chefs rejoiced when they saw Ji Young being released. Ji Young told them that she would explain everything later, but for now, they had to prepare lunch for the king. Yi Heon was immersed in studying medicinal herbs, to the point of skipping meals, when Ji Young's voice suddenly rang out. "I told you not to skip meals." Opening the door and seeing Ji Young, he was moved, pulled her into the room and hugged her tightly. "I missed you so much." Ji Young was also deeply moved, but remembering the Dowager Queen's warning, she pushed him away. "Many ridiculous rumors are spreading in the palace because of you. Always hugging and kissing women that you don't even like." Suddenly, Yi Heon hugged her tightly, his eyes filled with deep affection. And when Ji Young was about to explain, he silenced her with a sweet kiss. "That's for the woman I cherish the most." Now Yi Heon happily ate his meal, while Ji Young tasted it for him. Suddenly, he told her to eat with him today. This was an order. Ji Young had no choice but to obey. While eating, she told him everything. That the Dowager Queen released her on the condition that she had to prove her innocence within 3 days. They had to find out the truth together. The matter was more serious than he thought. Yi Heon immediately snatched the hidden dagger away. "Forget the promise to my grandmother. Do you think I'll let you die?" Ji Young paused for a moment, then asked back, "Do you really like me?" To her surprise, Yi Heon acted shy and pretended to be deaf. "Do you have feelings for me?" Seeing that, Ji Young told him not to do what he did earlier, to avoid spreading false rumors. Yi Heon asked back with a straight face, "What am I allowed to do and what am I not allowed to do? Please be more specific." Hugging me casually, calling me in the middle of the night, getting drunk and kissing me, or things like what happened just now. You can't do those things. You're really foolish. Mok Ju was furious to hear that the Dowager Queen had released Ji Young, but she was still confident that Ji Young couldn't clear her name. Maybe before she can do anything, the Grand Army Jin Yong will have gone to a distant land. Meanwhile, Min Sung tried to convince the Dowager Queen that the king was looking for an excuse to eliminate their Han family. But she said that their family still needed Yi Han to sit firmly on the throne. Let's wait and see what the royal head chef will do if she can't find evidence in 3 days. On the first day of the investigation, the king and Ji Young studied herbs and searched for clues together. They even called the royal physician to consult. Yi Hyun asked him about a strange medicinal ingredient in Jin Yong's medicine that had a strange bitter taste and was difficult to smell. But the royal physician didn't know what it was. The two stayed up late and fell asleep next to each other at some point. The next morning, Chang Xian reported that there was nothing unusual in Jin Yong's urine. That night, Ji Young returned to her room with a dejected expression. Seeing her bringing back the notes and herbs in the Grand Army's tonic, Gil Jiam curiously opened them to look. She discovered a package with a strange smell and said that it definitely smelled like rat droppings. Ji Young didn't really believe it, but it really did smell terrible. On the third day of the investigation, Ji Young went to the Great Ladies' Hall to ask about the Grand Army's eating habits. But before she could find any clues, Chang Xian ran over in a panic to report that the king had suddenly fainted. The royal physician said that it was probably because he was thinking too much and was exhausted. But Ji Young suddenly noticed that the king also had a fever. Symptoms similar to those of the Grand Army. When investigating, did your highness taste the herbs? If you have a fever like the Grand Army, could it be that his illness is related to a type of herb? The most suspicious thing is those black pills that Giljiam said smelled like rat droppings, which also had a strange, bitter taste that the king mentioned. Hearing that, the royal physician remembered 5-lingzi, a medicinal ingredient from the excrement of flying squirrels. The excrement of flying squirrels, after being processed to make medicine, is called 5-lingzi. Is excrement the same as rat droppings? The royal physician said that there shouldn't be 5-lingzi in the tonic, and 5-lingzi is not a poison, but a precious medicinal ingredient. At this time, Ji Young accidentally mentioned that the king ate ginseng porridge today. The royal physician suddenly realized, if you use 5-lingzi with ginseng, it will create toxins, causing chills and high fever, and using too much can affect your life. Luckily, Yi Hyun only tasted a little, so he won't be in danger. Even luckier, the royal physician knows the remedy to detoxify this toxin. Although it will take some time, Yi Hyun told him to confirm everything, and then make a remedy for the Grand Army Jin Yong. There is no doubt about it, someone has used tricks to poison my brother. Yi Hyun told Chang Xian to order Song Jae to go to the Internal Medicine Institute to determine the identity of the person who messed with Jin Yong's medicine. As soon as Chang Xian left, Yi Hyun suddenly clutched his head in pain. Ji Young worriedly ran over. To her surprise, Yi Hyun quickly pulled her down to lie next to him. Your Highness, I said not to do things that I don't allow you to do. What if someone comes in? Allow me to do this. I'm doing this to cure my headache. Just for a moment. While investigating those in charge of decocting the medicine for the Grand Army Jin Yong, Song Jae discovered that the female royal physician had secretly added 5-lingzi. But when they went to her residence, she was nowhere to be found. Yi Hyun immediately ordered a manhunt, then suddenly remembered that there was someone even better than any hunter, and that was the clown Gong Gil. Yi Hyun then ordered that the female royal physician must be found tonight. Meanwhile, Mok Ju, knowing that the royal physician has been exposed, sends Chu Wol to silence her. Just as Chu Wol is about to take action, Gong Gil appears in time to stop her. As soon as he sees the familiar hairpin, he is shocked to realize that Chu Wol is the one who killed his sister. The two engage in a fierce battle. Chu Wol is no pushover, not even inferior to Gong Gil. He asks why she killed his sister, and Chu Wol recognizes that he is the one who tried to assassinate the king. Now Gong Gil realizes that the one behind everything is none other than Mok Ju. It turns out that his sister offended her by competing for the king's favor. Hearing this, Gong Gil, in frustration, delivers a dangerous blow, causing Chu Wol to faint. The maid confesses that she acted under the orders of Mok Ju, and that there was another force behind her. But before she can finish her sentence, the assassin of the Grand Army Jizan silences her. Chu Wol is taken to prison, but no matter how they torture her, she doesn't admit to being involved in Jin Yong's case. When Yi Hyun directly questions her, Mok Ju vehemently denies the charges, blaming Chu Wol for acting alone because of personal grudges, and brazenly challenges the king to provide evidence. It turns out that Ji Young told Gong Gil to follow Mok Ju, and from there, they found the trail of the female royal physician. She revealed that she suspected it from the time Gil Jim was attacked, because the perpetrator was wearing a court lady's uniform, and only Mok Ju would have the audacity to do that. After Yi Hyun drank the antidote, he went to the place to witness Jin Yong's treatment, but the boy vomited as soon as he drank it. then had violent convulsions. The royal physician concluded that his body was too weak to absorb the medicine. Ji Young immediately recognized that it was a symptom of hypoglycemic shock, acute malnutrition. She quickly directed everyone to prepare a meal to restore energy. Man Su cooked pulled noodles. Gil Giam made rice cakes in the shape of bows. Man Su took care of the oxbone soup, and Bong Sik decocted angelica root, licorice root, deer antler, and chuangxiong. She called this dish restaurant, in French, meaning restoration, a Korean version that was exclusive to her. The rice cakes and noodles were put into the broth, which was simmered from oxbone soup with herbs, creating a thick and smooth sauce. For normal people, it's easy to gain weight, but for a child with acute malnutrition, it's a life-saving medicine. When Ji Young brought the dish up, the great lady was still suspicious. Yi Heon tasted it himself to reassure her. As soon as he ate it, he nodded. The broth is thick and creamy. The natural taste spreads throughout the body, and I suddenly feel full of energy. Sure enough, after Jin Yong ate it, the convulsions gradually subsided, his pulse stabilized, and he faintly called out, "Mother!" The whole hall erupted in emotion. The king turned to look at Ji Young, his eyes filled with gratitude. But as soon as she stepped outside, Ji Young collapsed because she was too stressed. Yi Heon softly made a date for her to come to the meeting point. At the time of 7:09 p.m., she was secretly happy, hoping that it was the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds to return home. But suddenly sweet memories with Yi Han flooded back, causing her heart to ache. What's wrong with me? Meanwhile, Mok Ju visits Chu Wol in prison, sweetly promising to help her escape. But it turns out that it's a farewell message, because right after that, she takes action and kills her without hesitation. Before leaving, she shoves the hairpin back into Chu Wol's hand. Ji Young arrives at the pavilion. Yi Heon appears in traditional ceremonial robes, performing a dance to ward off evil spirits, praying for longevity and prosperity. He says that he wants her to be the first person to see this dance, before it appears at the Dowager Queen's birthday banquet. She quietly watches him dance, her heart filled with sweet memories between the two. Meanwhile, the Grand Army Jizan leads his gang to the place where Yi Heon's grandmother is being held. That is, the mother of the deposed concubine Yoon. He reveals the shocking secret that the doll in the old woman's hand holds the blood-stained clothes of the king's mother when she was poisoned. He plots to reveal that secret at the birthday banquet to incite Yi Heon to go crazy and turn the Forbidden City into a sea of blood. Back at the pavilion, Yi Heon asks Ji Young if she still wants to find the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds. Then he confesses that he knew that she didn't belong to this era, from the day she cooked those strange dishes. "I don't want to find that book anymore. Please become my partner for life, and every morning I will personally make you breakfast." Ji Young choked up, suddenly thinking that staying here wouldn't be so bad. Before she could finish her sentence, Yi Heon leaned down and placed a sweet kiss on her lips. And this time she didn't refuse. She wasn't sure if she could give it all up to start a new life. Yi Heon was heartbroken, but he didn't force Ji Young to stay. He just said that he would wait and believe that one day she would come back to him. Moved by his feelings, Ji Young promised to come back and find him. In return, she wanted him to promise not to become a tyrant. In fact, even though Ji Young was determined to return to the future, leaving Yi Heon wasn't easy because she really had feelings for him. That night, Yi Heon drew a picture of the mixed rice and seaweed roll dish, the first dish that Ji Young made for him. He also wanted to personally make this dish for her one day, but he couldn't remember the name that Ji Young called it when she made the dish. He asked Chang Xian what name he should give it. Chang Xian suggested that because Ji Young missed her hometown so much, he could name this dish Hometown Rice. Yi Heon was worried that if he named it that, Ji Young would leave right after eating the dish. Meanwhile, Ji Young was thinking about all sorts of things, so she couldn't sleep. She asked Gil Giam if she wanted to come to the future with her. Gil Giam said awkwardly that she wasn't sure, but since they hadn't found the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds yet, the two agreed that they would discuss this further when they found it. The next day, the whole kitchen was busy preparing the Dowager Queen's birthday banquet, but the ironic thing was that she had been eating vegetarian food for a long time now. It wouldn't be right to have a royal banquet without meat, but they couldn't offer a dish that the Dowager Queen couldn't eat. Gil Giam asked if there was a dish that looked like meat but wasn't meat. While everyone was at a loss, Ji Young searched her memory and remembered that there was such a dish, soy meat. She decided that the two dishes today would be soy meat spring rolls and eggplant pie. Meanwhile, the Grand Army Jin Myung was offering birthday wishes to the Dowager Queen. At this moment, Mok Ju barged in without permission. The great ladies were all furious because everyone knew that her court lady had colluded with the female royal chef to harm the Grand Army Jin Myung, but she stubbornly insisted that she had done nothing against the will of heaven. The Dowager Queen didn't believe her, but because today was a happy day, she reluctantly allowed her to stay. Meanwhile, the Grand Army of Jazan's gang had fully prepared for the rebellion. Half of the internal imperial guards had been replaced by their rebel army under the pretense of rainy season training. The family members of the Zhang Yuan doctrine had been imprisoned by them to threaten and force him to obey orders. Today would mark the beginning of a new dynasty. The Grand Army Jason came to wish the Dowager Queen a happy birthday with a flattering smile and his usual pretense of ignorance. He presented her with a painting of the 10 symbols of longevity, and by the way, asked her to forgive his crime in the cooking competition with Great Ming. The Dowager Queen still smiled and thanked him for the gift, but didn't agree to forgive his crime. She suggested that he should resign from his position as the Director General of the Military Training Institute to show his remorse. Chang Xian reported to the king that Chu Wul had died in prison. Although it was said that she had killed herself, Yi Hian ordered a thorough investigation. In fact, he knew for sure that Mok Ju had taken action to kill her and silence her. Ji Young's team had finished preparing the dishes for the banquet. Suddenly, Gil Jium saw Ji Young drop a bag, and it seemed to smell of licorice and green tea. It turned out that it was licorice and green tea flavored chocolate that she had made especially for Yi Hian. The Dowager Queen's birthday banquet had begun, but Yi Hian had not yet arrived, causing her to sigh in disappointment. Mok Ju then ordered her people to dance to celebrate. The Dowager Queen tasted a bite and called Ji Young up to ask about the strange dish. Ji Young explained that this was meat made from soybeans. She knew that she didn't eat meat, so she used plant-based meat to make spring rolls and eggplant pie. The Dowager Queen nodded, very satisfied with Ji Young's vegetarian dishes. Only Mok Ju sarcastically said, "Or did you use real meat?" Ji Young smiled and replied that she took that as a compliment. The Dowager Queen ate a few more bites and looked satisfied. The royal chefs were all happy because their dish was praised. Mok Ju, on the other hand, was cursing Ji Young in her heart, saying that she only had today left to show off her cooking skills. Song Jae announced that the king had summoned a group of clowns to perform to celebrate the Dowager Queen's birthday. First was a lion dance to ward off evil spirits and bring good luck. After the lion dance was over, only the clown Gong Gil remained. After a few introductions, another clown appeared and performed a traditional dance with Gong Gil. Ji Young immediately recognized that it was Yi Hian. The Dowager Queen was also very happy to see that her grandson was showing his filial piety to her. Outside, the Zhang Yun doctrine was waiting with a file of documents. It turned out that the Jezin gang had used the lives of his wife to force him to follow their orders. When the dance ended, Yi Hian took off his mask and said his birthday wishes to his grandmother. At this moment, Zhang Yun stepped in. Yi Hian was very surprised to see him appear here, and immediately allowed him to enter. Zhang Yun presented the draft of the documents that the king had asked him to find. Ji Young had a bad feeling. Perhaps this was the source of the Jopsha literati purge event that she had been worried about for so long. Zhang Yun introduced the old woman in the back as the king's grandmother. After the king's mother was poisoned to death, his grandmother also went crazy. Now she doesn't even remember who she is, only constantly crying for justice and begging for mercy for her daughter. Seeing his grandmother being crazy like that, Yi Hian was saddened to tears. He ordered all the officials to stay where they were. Even the Dowager Queen, who asked to return to the palace because she was ill, was not allowed. Then, the king asked Song Jae to read the documents for everyone to hear. The documents recorded that two people who were jealous of the queen, Yi Hian's mother, had continuously submitted memorials to the king, arguing that she was not noble and virtuous enough to hold the position of queen. Not long after, the queen scratched the king's face, causing him and his mother, the great lady, to be very angry. Because of that, the queen was deposed and became a commoner, and was sent back to her hometown. Less than a year later, the great lady asked the king to give poison to the deposed queen, so that she could end her life. Yi Hian was extremely saddened to learn the truth about his mother's unjust death. He screamed in pain and then drew his sword, rushing towards the Dowager Queen. Ji Young frantically ran out to stop him, begging him not to do it. At this time, the Dowager Queen also confessed that she had asked the late emperor to give the deposed queen a death sentence. Suddenly, Yi Hian's grandmother raised a blood-stained shirt, and he asked Zhang Yun what that shirt was. Threatened by the Grand Army Jezin, Zhang Yun had to say that it was the shirt that his mother was wearing when she died. The Su Lu recorded her last words, which were a desire to have justice restored. Yi Hian's eyes turned red. He rushed towards the Dowager Queen, but only Ji Young dared to use her body to stop him. "You have to restrain yourself. If you take revenge now, you will regret it forever. Get out of the way. This has nothing to do with you. It has to do with me because I love you. Please stop. Your Highness, you promised me. You promised to make seaweed rolls for me. You promised to be a good king and not a tyrant." All the civil and military officials knelt, asking the king to reconsider. Yi Hian apologized to Ji Young, but said that the hatred for killing his mother could not go unavenged. He ordered the royal guard to block all exits. "Those who were involved in the death of my mother will not leave here alive." In this precarious situation, Ji Young suddenly remembered Yi Hian's grandmother. Maybe chocolate would help her sober up a little. She quickly ran to give her some chocolates. "Please tell the truth. Please help him escape from this hatred." At this time, Yi Hian had rushed to the Dowager Queen with the cold sword blade pressed against her neck. This time, Ji Young was completely powerless, only able to watch with a twisting heart. Just as the sword blade was about to strike, Yi Heon's grandmother suddenly burst into tears. She choked and repeated the last wish of the deposed queen. "I pray that my son will become a holy king and clear my name." Those last words pierced Yi Heon's heart like an arrow. A holy king? It's too late. No, it's not too late. My mother never wanted your hands to be stained with blood. Please, your highness, have mercy. Yi Heon's eyes were bloodshot with anger and pain. He screamed, blaming himself and his fate. Why did his father kill his mother and then put him on the throne? Finally, Yi Heon dropped his sword and collapsed to the ground. At this time, everyone in the hall breathed a sigh of relief. Only the grand army of Jesun's faction gnashed their teeth in hatred because their plan had failed at the last moment. Yi Heon stumbled into the garden, chasing away all the servants who followed behind. Ji Young quietly followed because she didn't want to leave him alone. Yi Heon came to the orchid tree and remembered his mother, tears streaming down his face again. He suddenly realized that revenge would go against his mother's last words, and that everything would be in vain. Ji Young comforted him, saying that revenge wouldn't bring his mother back, it would only make his heart hurt more. She advised him to try to reconcile with the Dowager Queen with a meal, giving her a chance to say the things that she hadn't said. Yi Heon was silent for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Ji Young relayed the words of Chef Tang Bailong. The outer edge of everything is always more difficult to see, and when going to sleep, remember to lock the latch carefully. Although she didn't fully understand the meaning of this sentence, she guessed that it was very important to Yi Heon. Immediately afterwards, Ji Young eagerly threw herself into preparing a reconciliation dinner. She decided to make a rice noodle dish which symbolized reconciliation. The kitchen was bustling again, with everyone working on their own tasks. Ji Young realized that any massacre at this time would lead to a counter-rebellion, and Yi Heon could lose the throne. But if Yi Heon was willing to reconcile with his grandmother, history might take a different turn. Meanwhile, Jesun and his gang were preparing to carry out their second plan. He decided that tonight was the time to change the country, and Yi Heon's hunting grounds would be his burial ground. The dinner was almost complete when Gil Jiam broke a plate of food, making the whole kitchen fall silent. Everyone felt cold shivers because it was a bad omen. Sure enough, just a moment later, the royal guards rushed in, knocking them unconscious and arresting Ji Young. At the same time, Yi Heon received an urgent report that Song Jae was asking to mobilize troops to suppress the rebel army hiding in the forest. Immediately afterwards, the right minister of Jasun's faction rushed in, reporting that the royal head chef had been kidnapped and was now in the hands of the rebel army. Yi Heon immediately remembered Tang Bailong's mysterious message, suspecting that it was a warning, but there was no choice. He still decided to lead the troops to the forest to save Ji Young and suppress the rebel army. But it was all an elaborate trap set by Jesun. As soon as Yi Heon left the royal palace, he put on the dragon robe and wore a mask, pretending to be the king. He strutted straight into the Dowager Queen's palace. "I will overthrow this incompetent monarchy and bring the kingdom back to its original position. And this sword is for putting the son of the deposed concubine on the throne." As soon as he finished speaking, the sword fell, mercilessly ending her life. In Yi Heon's disguise, Jesun brutally slaughtered court ladies and servants. Screams echoed everywhere. Rumors spread like wildfire. "His Highness has gone mad." Immediately afterwards, Jesun threw off his mask and tied a red ribbon around his head. Signal flares exploded brightly in the sky, signaling the official start of the coup. The rebel army flooded in like a tide, slaughtering without mercy. The chief ladies fell, the loyal old eunuch also collapsed, and the entire royal palace was submerged in a sea of blood. Meanwhile, in the forest, Yi Heon and his soldiers found Song Jae tied to a stake. Without hesitation, he rushed to untie him. As soon as Song Jae woke up, he immediately warned that this was a trap set by Jesun. Before he could react, the rebel army rushed out in unison, firing arrows like rain. Song Jae pushed the king away, taking an arrow straight through his chest. "This life of mine has always been loyal to the king, and I beg to leave it here." The rebel army fired arrows wildly, and fire erupted, turning the entire forest into hell. The royal guard desperately shielded him, opening a path for the king to retreat. In another direction, Ji Young, after being knocked unconscious by the royal guards, was unexpectedly rescued by Gong Gil. But before she could run, the rebel army had chased after them. Seeing that all of them were wearing red ribbons on their heads, she immediately understood that the Grand Army Jesun had rebelled and was plotting to seize the throne. At the same time, Yi Heon was also fighting fiercely with the rebel army. Almost all of his subordinates were killed. A surviving guard found Yi Heon in the pile of corpses. Fortunately, he had only fainted and his life wasn't in danger. The situation in the palace was just as critical. The Grand Army came before the Queen Mother, proposing to support Yi Heon's half-brother to ascend the throne. The Queen Mother had her own plans in mind. Yi Heon was still alive, so if she let her son ascend the throne at this time, wouldn't she be seen as a rebel? Seeing that the Queen Mother was not cooperating, the Grand Army immediately changed its aggressive attitude, its eyes revealing murderous intent, forcing the two, mother and son, to attend the coronation ceremony the next day. The next day, the Queen Mother and the new king changed into ceremonial robes. The new king sat on the throne, receiving the bows of the officials. However, putting the new king on the throne was only the first step in the Grand Army's plan. He planned to seize power in the name of supporting the king, and when the time was right, he would seize the throne from the new king. That way, he wouldn't be labeled as a traitor and be ridiculed by the people. After learning the news that the new king had ascended the throne, Gong Gil immediately informed Ji Young of the current situation. Now Yi Heon's life or death was unknown. Gong Gil told Ji Young to stay here and wait, while he went out to continue searching for him. Very quickly, the Grand Army received a report that Yi Heon was still not dead, only that the subordinates had been careless and lost track of him while following him. But the Grand Army didn't care. In his view, the new king had ascended the throne, and a deposed king couldn't cause any trouble. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Heon returned to the palace and was brought before the Grand Army. Yi Heon asked to have a talk with the Grand Army to get things straight. The two uncles and nephews went inside the hall to talk privately. Yi Heon pointed out that the Grand Army lured him to the forest to create the false scene that the king had an accident while hunting. Unfortunately, Yi Heon was too familiar with the terrain there. In just a few moves, he cut off the Grand Army's subordinates and returned to the palace. In fact, from the moment he set out for the destination, Yi Heon had realized that this was a trap deliberately set by the Grand Army. It was all thanks to Tang Beilong's reminder, the edge of things, and the latch. Two phrases that were pronounced similarly to his title, Lord Jezin, helping him to be prepared from the start. At this time, the Grand Army, looking at Yi Heon before him, looking like a lost dog, no longer hid anything and frankly admitted that he had killed the Dowager Queen. He angrily criticized Yi Heon for causing a great disaster years ago, taking the lives of countless loyal officials. Later, he used his mother's name to eliminate Hong, who wanted to avenge his mother. Every event fueled his anger. The Grand Army said frankly that Yi Heon was not worthy of being king, and this throne should have belonged to him. Hearing the Grand Army's sincere words, Yi Heon no longer had any ripples in his heart. He had no other requests, only hoping that the Grand Army could support the new king well in the future, and not let the new king become a tyrant. The Grand Army ignored his request, instead announcing that he had decided to exile Yi Heon to the resting place of his mother. While the two uncles and nephews were talking, Gong Gil, hiding outside the hall, confirmed that Yi Heon was temporarily safe and quietly retreated. After that, Yi Heon was locked in prison. The Grand Army pretended to be merciful, leaving Yi Heon a memento, throwing in the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds that he treasured so much. Yi Heon wrote 3 words on the book, along with the words he wanted to say to Ji Young. If one day Ji Young reads this book, he hopes that the person he loves can return to his side. Gong Gil returned to his hiding place, reporting to Ji Young that Yi Heon was still alive. Ji Young then breathed a sigh of relief. She suddenly remembered the history of Korea. Yi Heon, after being exiled, would eventually be killed. Therefore, she earnestly begged Gong Gil to find a way to rescue Yi Heon. On the day Yi Heon was exiled, he was falsely accused of assassinating the Dowager Queen. He was also stripped of his title. Yi Heon had heard of this title from Ji Young, and at this point, he was completely certain that she was from the future and knew his fate in advance. Halfway through the escort, Yi Heon was dragged out of the prison car. The soldiers, obeying the Grand Army's orders, were planning to kill him right there. At the critical moment, Yi Heon's bodyguard suddenly fired an arrow, killing the soldier carrying out the order. From the moment Yi Heon returned to the palace, everything was in his plan. Now, he just needed to wait here, waiting for the Grand Army to come to confirm his death and walk right into the net. As expected, the Grand Army led his soldiers. The strength of the two sides was too disparate. Anyone who looked at it could see that Yi Heon would definitely die today. At that moment, Ji Young and Gong Gil arrived in time. Along with them were the royal guard and a group of masters that Gong Gil had found. Although it was only a small amount of help, everyone joined forces to face the Grand Army's soldiers. Yi Heon's temporarily assembled army was quickly beaten to a pulp. But in the next second, grenades from nowhere flew over, causing the Grand Army's soldiers to scatter. Chun brought grenades to help. The appearance of firearms helped everyone turn the tide. With their power, the Grand Army's soldiers were scattered. Seeing the dangerous situation, the Grand Army immediately ordered his subordinates to take advantage of the chaos to knock Ji Young unconscious and capture her. He used Ji Young as a hostage, demanding that Yi Heon come to the hall alone. Yi Heon had no choice but to go to the hall alone. Before leaving, he ordered his subordinates to clean up the remnants of the Grand Army. While Yi Heon was heading to the meeting point alone, everyone, after a fierce battle, had regained control of the royal palace. Gong Gil rushed into Mok Ju's palace, determined to avenge his sister. Mok Ju would rather hurt herself than beg for forgiveness. Gong Gil showed no mercy, stepping forward and adding another knife to his sister. At sunset, Yi Heon arrived at the hall. As soon as he saw Ji Young, he was surrounded by 3 of the Grand Army subordinates. To save Ji Young, he could only fight the three alone. During the battle, the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds fell to the ground and the white wine bottle next to it shattered. Ji Young, taking advantage of the Grand Army's attention on the fight, picked up a piece of the broken wine bottle and cut the rope binding her. She intended to rush up to help Yi Han, but accidentally saw the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds on the ground. Ji Young opened it and realized that the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds was actually written by Yi Han for her. While she was shocked, she noticed that Yi Han was in danger. Without hesitation, she rushed to take a knife for Yi Han from the Grand Army. Fresh blood splattered on the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds. Yi Han's eyes were about to burst. Angrily, he killed the Grand Army, then hugged Ji Young and cried. Badly injured, Ji Young revealed her heart. "I love you, Your Highness." In the next second, the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds flashed a golden light, and a blood moon hung high in the night sky. The Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds turned on its own without wind, opening to that page. The words in the book wrapped around Ji Young, sending her through time back to the future. Yi Han cried, not wanting Ji Young to just leave like that. He wanted to press the book down to stop her. Because he used too much force, the page was torn. After everything returned to peace, Yi Han vowed that in this life he must find Ji Young. Ji Young woke up in the hospital, touching the sword wound on her shoulder. She realized that it wasn't just a dream. She found the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds. Wanting to return to Yi Han's side, but her father suddenly appeared and hugged her tightly. Ji Young had no choice but to go home to settle things first, but her mind was always filled with the image of Yi Han. Every time she thought of him, tears couldn't stop flowing. She hurriedly looked up historical documents and discovered that history had changed. After the rebellion, Yi Han had disappeared. After confirming that he was still not dead, Ji Young opened the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds, earnestly wanting to return to his side. She had tried many ways but still couldn't travel through time successfully. Ji Young cried her eyes out, remembering that she had once asked Yi Han what to do if she couldn't return. At that time, Yi Han had vowed that he would take the initiative to find her. Thinking of this, Ji Young hugged the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds and fell asleep peacefully. A month later, Ji Young agreed to help a friend, temporarily becoming the head chef of the restaurant. Modern royal cuisine. What surprised her was that when she gathered the kitchen staff to develop a new menu, she saw a few people in modern clothes appearing before her. Their appearance was exactly the same as those in the royal kitchen in the past, as if they were their descendants. Ji Young was overjoyed. In this restaurant, she seemed to find the familiar feeling of working in the royal kitchen again. She combined the royal dishes that she had mastered as an intern with the dishes recorded in the Chronicles of Gazing at Clouds to develop a complete set of royal meals. The set meal quickly became popular and sold very well. A man with the exact same appearance as Song Jae came to the restaurant. The waiter recognized him at a glance. He was a food critic sent by Michelin. Unexpectedly, this person intentionally came to cause trouble. He hadn't even tasted a bite of the set meal before demanding a negative review for the restaurant. Just as Ji Young was about to step forward to argue, a familiar voice rang out. "If what this person says is true, I will personally taste it." It was Yi Han, who had traveled thousands of years to come to the modern world. Facing the teary-eyed Ji Young, Yi Han clearly stated that he came here to fulfill his promise to find you. As soon as he finished speaking, he stepped forward and hugged Ji Young tightly, giving her a deep and passionate kiss. Not long after, Ji Young and Yi Han began living together. Yi Han even made kimchi fried rice rolls for her. The two of them played together every day and were very happy. Ji Young couldn't help but ask Yi Han, "How did you finally come to the modern world?" Yi Han only said that it was a secret. Ji Young didn't ask any more questions. For her, the process wasn't important. What was important was that two lovers had been reunited. No matter what happened, they would never be separated again. The film ends here. Thank you for your attention. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to see more good films.